Hello, hello, hello. It's a busy night tonight, huh? Got a workshop going on in the background. We have this going on right now. God, busy. Busy, busy, busy. Glad you all found the time in your busy schedule to be here, though. I appreciate it. Hope everyone is doing well. Let me switch on over already. We got some exciting stuff to be talking about today. I think I've done enough teasing like the past couple of weeks. So I think in a little bit we can talk about why the hell I was teasing and why the hell it was going to be such a big deal. I guess not necessarily for all of you, but more for me. But we'll get into that. We'll get into that. I wanted to share with people that might be understanding this feeling. I upgraded my GPU from a 2060 to a 5060. Hell yeah! That's awesome. Yeah, GPU upgrade is always like super nice. Freaking Sonic, like Leia saying. Everything going. There we go. So between workshop and feedback, I know. So we're gonna take it a little bit slow at the introduction of this, right? Because I know that a lot of people are split between the two, and I don't want to distract them too much. So we're just gonna do like a little bit of a preamble here. Give it 30 minutes or something like that. Let the Q&A run out, and then we're gonna be diving into our feedback session, as we always do. Who knows? We might be talking for like an hour and more, you know? Who knows where we're going to end up in the final timeline. Yeah, I hope everyone's doing well. That's an awesome little upgrade. Yeah, I think, God, I've been looking at like PC parts and all that kind of stuff. But it's so expensive. Like, and I'm still good on my PC. Like, I don't really need to upgrade it, but I have to be up early tomorrow, so if I miss my feedback, I'll have to watch it in. I'll watch the reply if that's okay. Yeah, sure. We can also like scoot you up a little bit and talk about that whenever we get started on the feedback. That would be good too. We can keep that into account. It's gonna be a packed session. I think we have like 17 people today, so we're not gonna make the preamble too long. Jill was part efficient in presenting the workshop. We're already at the Q&A part. That's awesome. Yeah, I think the workshop was planned out to be like an hour long anyway, so it's good. That's good. Really efficient. Love to hear it. For people that were in the workshop, how was it? Did y'all enjoy it? Anything specific that was like a really cool takeaway? As long as it's not a hassle? No, it's not a hassle, Charlie. We can work around it. We can be flexible. So yeah, week has been busy. What has been happening? So we had our team meeting as we always do on Tuesday yesterday, which was good. We had a chat with, or I had a chat with our editor over the weekend as well. She went through a move. So we already made an announcement about this, that there is like a little bit of a back catalog, but we're getting on top of it now. So hopefully in the near future, you'll see like a bunch of workshops being unlocked and added to your dashboard, which would be really cool, because it would be cool. I think we have currently, I think, not counting the one with Jill that is currently still going on, I think we have 5 of them in the back catalog that we still need to add to the website. So expect them to be released pretty soon. So yeah. Oh, you're looking into courses at DIA too? That's where I'm from. Yeah, I went to that school. I mean, like, I honestly want to say that like I would recommend it, but honestly, take that with a grain of salt, because like when I was in that school, like it's completely different now. So yeah, don't take my word for it. Like, do your own research, talk to people that graduated there recently, do all that stuff if you're looking into it. But yeah, can be a pretty interesting school. But yeah, so yeah, we had our team meeting yesterday, which was good. We're grinding away on the courses as well. We're We're currently in the final edit of like 2 of them. I need to record like a whole bunch of videos. But yeah, I need to have a little bit of time for that. So we might as well get to it, right? So there's a whole bunch of things like that I need to do on my list. But there's a big change that's coming up that is gonna have an effect on anything. Might as well just say it. Like, a lot of people know about this already, but this week will be my last week at my current job, and then we're gonna be moving back to Belgium in December. So I decided to hand in my notice a couple of weeks ago. I'm currently going through, well, next week is a final week. We're going to be moving back to Belgium, and then we're basically going to be switching up our lives, and I'm basically going to be looking for contract work and whatever else beyond extent work and all that kind of stuff that comes on top of it. So I'm really excited for that. I'm also scared about it too. It's always daunting. I mean, we're basically going from like having like a stable job and all that kind of stuff to, well, not technically nothing, right? But like, it's basically like this big gamble. But yeah, you'll see a couple of changes incoming. The first big one is that I will be available for mentorships again. So that's the good news. I've always wanted to pick this back up, but like everything else going on, I just couldn't. So mentorships are available once more. I will link it in the description here there we go. So we're gonna add that in here. Feel free to check it out. I know that people were passively aware that this was a thing. But not workshops. Mentorships are available again. So I'm really excited about that. I think that's going to be good. I will be announcing this outside of the community as well. We'll be throwing that out there pretty soon. So yeah, if you have an interest, if you want to know more, feel free to ping me about it as well. Most of you that are here are part of the community anyway. So, yeah, feel free to ping me about it if you have any questions. Other big changes that will be coming with that. So the timing is no coincidence, right? I want to explain why we're only moving in December, even though I'm leaving my job like next week, basically. It's because of team challenges. I now have all the time to basically devote to team challenges, right? Which is going to be really cool. I'm going to be doing like a whole bunch of BE stuff in the meantime as well. But I didn't want to move like during the team challenge because that would be so much chaos, and I wanted to avoid that for now. So we're going to be moving after the team challenges are done. So yeah, that will be happening too. But for the keen observers that have seen some of my statues disappearing and some of like the boxes that I had like in the back, that is what was happening. We already started kind of packing. And yeah, we will be moving in December. So that's going to be exciting. Let's see. Feel free to ask any questions that you have about that, right? I see a couple of questions in chat as well. So let us dive into them. Because I know that with any change... I mean, like I said, most of the change... Like, no one is going to really see a big impact of this, right? So no one... The workshops are still going to be coming out. The course is still going to be under production. And the only thing that's going to be happening is that I'll move and then be able to fully dedicate my time to all that stuff. So yeah, Guillaume is saying big changes. And then Joe is also saying, oh shit, dude, sorry to see you go. Yeah, it's an interesting time. I mean, I was thinking about this for a while now. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, right? I will definitely miss the people. The project is gonna be ace. I mean, I'm not too worried about the project. They're gonna be kicking ass. The project is looking really good. But yeah, it's just there's a whole bunch of considerations like, okay, how many times am I gonna keep moving for a job? You know? My parents are also getting a little bit older. It's nice to not have to say bye-bye to like all your friends like every couple of years. Like there's a lot of there's a lot of stress and a lot of like things that come with it. Like, it's also nice to just come home. And what I mean by that is I literally mean home, right? Because we've been moving places so much that we've gotten so used to it that we don't even consider the houses that we live in homes, which is weird. Like, it's just like, oh, it's the next place that we are at, but it's not our home, if that makes sense. I think we're getting to that point where that is like really frustrating. Plus also like being attached to a visa. So to give some context, I was here before Brexit, right? So 2016 to 2019, I think I was here. Completely different story. We could just move here. My residence was not attached to like me having a job in what ways whatsoever. Now it is. And my partner's is attached to it too. So if I decide like, hey, I don't really want to do this anymore, that also means that we have to leave the country in 60 days, right? Unless I find like another job. So I'm kind of just like in this perpetual cycle of like, hey, I could potentially look into, I mean, I looked into like all the options and like I could potentially take Beyond Extend to become like a proper company, do like sales sponsorship, all that kind of stuff. But there were like some restrictions that I couldn't reach yet. So it seems to be the main option that we had here was just like going back to Europe, getting settled there, and then honestly diving into the whole world of freelance and picking up contracts and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, both exciting and both scary as well. Yeah, there will be leaving drinks. I will send an email in the company. Ever wanted to become a teacher? So that's a good question. So I don't really want to become a teacher in the traditional sense. If I want to become a teacher, then if I want to become a teacher, I feel like I'm already doing that with Beyond Extend anyway, right? Like, then I would just double down on what we're doing and do like, I don't know, weekly streams and build like a whole bunch of presentations and build up the course and all that kind of stuff, compared to doing it in the traditional manner. Because from what I've heard from like a bunch of talented friends of mine that went into teaching in multiple countries, there's a whole bunch of restrictions around it, right? So I honestly don't want to deal with that. And I feel like we're doing something that's so adjacent to it anyway that might as well double down on it that way. If it's that hard for you to get settled, then we're cooked. No, but I don't think it's necessarily. It's more of a mental thing for me, right? Like if you get into the country and you get a skilled worker visa, like some people might love it and it's a big adventure for them and all that kind of stuff. It's just for me, when I look at all the options, I feel like there's more options available in Europe and it's easier for me to do so than currently the UK is, with all the changing regulations and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's very, very dependent. This is why remote work is a massive win for the industry. Yeah, unfortunately, the numbers kind of speak against it, right? Where like it seems like remote work is kind of like this thing that is slowly losing momentum. If you look at the numbers, doesn't mean that it's not out there, but yeah, it's harder and harder for what I can tell. But hey, we're gonna find out. I'll let you know in a couple of months, you know, how it goes. Let's see. So a couple more questions. Charlie is saying, very exciting. Do you notice a lot of differences between Belgium and the UK? I mean, you have like a stereotypical examples, right? Where like the taxes are like completely different. Like taxes in Belgium, for example, are ridiculous. You really quickly hit like a 52% tax on your income as like a person just working in Belgium, which is kind of crazy. There's also like every country has this like different setup, right? Where like in Belgium you don't pay capital gains taxes, so you can kind of go in that way and kind of make your money back. Yeah, 52% is insane. But also like here's the thing though, right? You pay a lot, but you also get a lot for it back, right? I think I read some statistics that like Belgium is literally the country with the highest amount of doctors available. You can literally pick your own doctor. It's super easy to get signed up with like a new doctor. Like everything's really good set up. You have like really reliable public transport. Housing prices are affordable. You know, like there's pros and cons. You know, because if you look at it from like a global perspective, and we're getting into like I don't know, very politics adjacent stuff. I feel it's like yeah. Let's say I might earn more at the end of the day here in the UK, right? Which is definitely true. But I gain less from it because the housing prices are ridiculous. Food prices are probably comparable. I don't think that's going to be too much of a difference. But if you just want to save up for a house, you're literally spending like double. I mean, sounds crazy, but like double. But then also again, like as a con to it, right? Like you have for the games industry specifically, you have a lot more job opportunities in the UK than you have in Belgium. And that is also what Mekval was asking, right? Like, are there any sizable studios in Belgium apart from Larian? There's a couple, but most of them that I know of are like relatively small indie companies that are not hiring because it's literally just like one or two people working on it, right? I feel like since the success of Larian, I feel like there's like a little bit more of like an eye towards that. But yeah, I guess we're gonna have to figure that out. And who knows? I did have a conversation with one of the recruiters at Larian. So who knows? Maybe that might be in the books at a certain point, but we'll see. Will the weekly stream start at a different time after the move? Good question. I'm thinking with the time conversion, right? Because there's 1 hour difference. So I guess in worst case scenario, we move it like 1 hour up. So it will be like 7 p.m. UK time. But I'll figure it out once we get there. Does that mean the return of the Friday streams? I do really miss them, to be honest. If there is, I honestly need to figure out, like, first of all, how well the course is going to be doing, right? So that's going to be like our main priority now, is getting that up and running and making sure that that is like sustainable and that we have something going with that, right? Because that would be like the thing that's literally going to be the difference in my future. So that's why I want to spend as much time as I can on it. But I do want to do like more personal art, right? Because what I'd like is that right now I go to work and I can spend like the entire day working on art and then come home and it's more management and beyond extent stuff, right? I do want to keep that balance somehow, but I don't know how I'm going to fill up the art slot. If it's just going to be portfolio pieces or if it's just going to be like something else, who knows? I have no idea yet. So we're going to figure that out. Contract work is so popular compared to full-time from the looks of it. Yeah, I mean, it's so weird, right? Because I am a contractor now, right? But it's almost like, I mean, it is weird because it's not the same as like what your stereotypical contractor is in the US, right? So in the US, like if you're a contractor, you usually don't have the benefits of like a full-time employee, right? But that's not the case. I have like the full benefits, pension schemes, all that kind of stuff, right? Because yeah, I think a contractor in this case just means that it's easier to fire you if they wanted to, or they're downsizing, right? There's less restrictions. As soon as you get made permanent, then they have to go through like a whole process to like then let you go again. But being on a contract, I've always been on a contract for like a year or maybe 2, and then I got made permanent. So that's not necessarily something different. We will have to see about that, Zoe. I'm not sure because it's going to be a packed session. And then Sergio is asking, what was the Friday stream? So you can still watch all of them. It's the stream archive that is on this channel, where it's basically me just working on my stuff. I was working on the medieval scene for like, I don't know, like 52 episodes or something like that, or 47 episodes. That was basically just me working on like a Friday afternoon, just having fun with it. We missed the Friday streams. Yeah, I do miss them too. I do miss them too. Like, depending on what is gonna happen, like I do want to bring them back. But I need to figure out what's gonna happen with the contract situation first, right? So we're gonna take it step by step. If we have some time to chat, any quick tips on finding and reaching out about unpaid internships for environment art? About unpaid ones? Specifically for environment art? I mean, it's just your literal job hunt, right? Just to reach out to companies and just tell them like the time frame that you're looking into. I would not go for unpaid internships though. I would go for paid ones. Because you might think that it's a boon to the company, but even if you want to hire someone as an unpaid internship, like there's a whole bunch of restrictions in companies, or not in companies, in countries that stop you from doing so. So I would just ask around for internships and then see how that conversation goes. The last thing I remember was you were remaking a Kingdom Come Deliverance screenshots. Yeah. Almost all the ones in Sweden are unpaid. Well, yeah, see, but that's because like there's the government. The government gets. I mean, I don't want to say get involved, but like the government doesn't say like, hey, you need to get paid or something like that, right? Oh, if you never heard of paid internships, I did a paid internship. I feel like that should be the standard. I think in Belgium you also don't have to pay. You have the choice if you can get paid. But I did my internship in the UK and they were fully paid. So yeah, I would not even ask for paid or unpaid. I would just ask you to have an open slot for an internship and then see how that conversation goes. Because what you don't want to end up doing is, let's say they want to get you for a paid internship, but then you say like, oh, I'm looking for an unpaid one. Then they can be like, okay, cool. Yeah, we'll get you for free. No worries. So you don't want to trap yourself in that situation unnecessarily. Six months unpaid, but that's a long time. That is a long time. Justine is saying, in the UK, I feel like most internships, you have to be in your final year of a game-related degree. Yeah, I think if it's like a proper government scheme or something like that, right? Then I think you have to be enrolled or currently enrolled in a recognized university, right? So there are definitely some restrictions there. So yeah, that is good to bring up as well. In the UK, it's contract for 4 years before the company has to make you permanent, I believe. It's 2 years. That's why our maximum contract at Playgrounds, for example... Oh, no, wait, you're saying something different. Wait, let me read this first. So, in the UK, it's a contract for 4 years before the company has to make you permanent, I believe. But you do get more protective rights around 2 years and against unfair dismissal and redundancies. Oh, interesting. Interesting. Okay, that actually makes sense. Because I do know people that are on like a 3-year contract for like a place in the UK. But in for example, in my case, I negotiated really hard and they wouldn't budge anything further than 22 months. That was like the maximum. So that was like already an indication for me of like, okay, there's probably some restriction there. Maybe it's from like the government or another company or who knows what's happening there. I just find that stuff like really interesting. But I didn't know that they have to make you permanent after 4 years. I mean, it's good. it is good. But I feel like what we're seeing is that a lot of companies will figure out a way around it anyway, so that they don't have to make you permanent, right? Because then they can just like let you go, get hired through like a separate agency, or yeah, do something like that, right? It is weird. And it is interesting. Like I do understand sort of where they're coming from as well, right? Because it's so yeah, it's so yeah, I do get where they're coming from, because I mean, if you make games, right? If you're making games as like a game studio, then God, it's so risky. Microsoft just signed 6 months contract with third-party vendors and never signs you in the UK. Actually, a huge issue for games like Sea of Thieves. Well, yeah, I guess I don't work for like Microsoft directly, right? I mean, there's probably like a limited amount of stuff that I can say, but like Playgrounds is attached to Microsoft, and I do have like a 22-month contract. So make of that what you will, I guess. This is where we get into like the weeds of things, right? And it gets like really dicey. So I don't know. At my old warehouse job in yeah, don't get yourself in trouble. I get what you're saying. Yeah, but I'm genuinely curious, because so here's the thing, right? Like if I'm gonna be open about like why I'm so hesitant to talk about it, it's not about like the it's not necessarily about like the fear of saying anything bad, but it's more about like I don't know what the actual official business relationship is with between like Playgrounds and Microsoft, right? There's like a bit of ignorance is bliss there, because you have first party, you have third party, you have like external party, like you have so many different ways that like companies work together. So if I'm just like assuming that maybe that is because Rare is more embedded or less embedded within the Microsoft structure. Yeah. So there's a bunch of stuff going on there. That's the reason why I'm so hesitant, because I actually just don't know how those relationships like kind of tie together, you know? Which is kind of weird saying it out loud. That's kind of like, I don't know like how Playground works with Xbox. God. Okay. Well, I should do more research apparently. Currently I did the move to freelance as well, like you're doing. Oh, okay. And how is that going in your case, Andre? Yeah, Rare only does temporary contracts. Yeah, it's so if I have to speculate, I feel like that's gonna be more of a move in the future. Just because if I had to bet on it, then I have to bet on internal teams are gonna get smaller and smaller. And then remote teams that get outsourced through like other companies like co-development studios or outsource studios or all that kind of stuff, they're going to get bigger. Because then you create like more flexibility within your core structure. Not core structure, but within your business structure, right? Because then you can just be like, hey, look, we're just going to end our contract because we don't see like how this is going to work in the future. So we're just gonna let you go. And it also increases, it sounds like a bad thing, right? Like where they let go of like a co-development partner, but that's just the nature of game development. And I then also think that if you are a co-development or a co-development or an outsourced studio, you have the benefit of not being attached to like a single company anymore. You get to diversify what you work on, so that in the case that like you lose one of your big contracts, you still have other contracts backing you up. So I can kind of see it from like a business perspective, where it becomes like more interesting to have something that is more diversified and more robust and safe for the future. But that also does mean that, like, if we look at the old kind of structure of AAA, where you had like thousands of people just working in a single building, is potentially a thing of the past, you know, especially over the long term. Again, we'll see, right? We will see, because everyone's kind of doing their own version of it, right? Where Larian, CD Projekt Red, Ubisoft, I mean, Ubisoft is the biggest in that case. They just have like places like all over the place. Even though they're doing it more under like the old school mentality of like, oh, we're still like one big company and we just have all these branches everywhere, right? Yeah. Well, let's see. I'm curious to know how this is going to be in the future, because I mean, I'm going to be a part of it in a different way that I've always been. So I have no idea how that's going to work. Yeah, for the people, just a little quick recap for the people that are jumping in. Like I see Route 1 jumping in. Just a quick TLDR. This week will be my last week at Playgrounds, and I'm going to jump into the freelance pool and going to be exploring contract work and all that kind of stuff in the near future. Plus also, mentorships are open again, so yay! Let's see. CDPR is mostly in Poland still, right? Apart from the Boston studio? Yeah. I think, but that's like even opening like a Boston studio, that's already hinting at like, hey, you're looking to like set up in like a different hub with like a different pool of talent, right? Because I mean that might mean that the local talent pool is like sort of like dried up, which I don't know. It seems that if you want to move to Poland, like it's still like really attractive. But yeah. I mean, there's so many reasons why they could, right? Would you do remote full time if you had the chance? That's a good question. So in my ideal situation, what I would do is part-time. And then just be able to spend like half of my time would be on Accent and half of my time with like the job. The thing is though, I have no idea. I know some people that do it, but I have no idea if that's going to be working for me, right? Andre is saying it's a bit scary. I moved to freelance after shipping Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Splintered Fate. And then, as you said, remote is a bit spotty, but outsourcing is good and competitive right now. Yeah. And Joe is saying, if that's the case, and full-time positions become rarer and rarer, then surely the industry will shrink, right? No, I don't think so. I think it's gonna be growing. But I think the positions are gonna be different, right? Because if you think about it, like the productions are not shrinking, right? They're still growing and growing and growing. But yeah, like I think the in-house, like where you have like the studio that worked on X, they're gonna work with smaller and smaller teams, and they're gonna be working with more and more external teams. Like P is saying, I work in an outsourced studio, and that's true. Yeah. I mean, it makes so much sense, right? Because like, yeah. I mean, I live in one of these hubs, right? Like in Leamington Spa, where it is really expensive to live. I mean, not as expensive as like London, but like if you compare it to some other places, it's kind of crazy like how much you pay just to be in a part of the world that is so driven by tech, because it raises all the prices. I don't know. Kind of don't feel like that's like necessarily good for like a lot of people working there, right? IO Interactive have 5 studios in Europe, I think, but I don't know how big the ones are outside Copenhagen and Malmo are. So I think IO Interactive has, I don't know all the studios, but they have a big studio in the UK, in Brighton, and that studio has, I think, around 800 people. So that's still a big studio, right? So yeah, like not like full-time remote, but maybe picking up like part-time jobs. And I also want to explore, this is the thing, like I've always worked in like AAA, massive production, hyper specialized, where now I kind of want to go to something that's smaller and just like where I can have like where I can have just more hands in different things, right? Rather than just being like super specialized. McFall saying 800, really? I thought they had like that amount in total. No, I think that must be bigger. I mean, if you look at like just the production, right? Because they probably still have like people supporting Hitman, and then they're doing, aren't they doing like, might be confusing. Aren't they also like working like an RPG thing? Might be confusing things. And then they have like James Bond too, right? And if you think about the size of like AAA studios or the AAA games, we hit that number like really quick, which is crazy. Yeah, Project Fantasy. So I'm assuming that that is going to be like, I don't know, an RPG kind of thing, right? Because it kind of sounds like it. So they have like 3 things under development that we know of. So if you want to get them to like that AAA quality, then yeah, you're really, really quickly going to be in like the thousands of people, right? If not 1,000 for one project, sometimes. What's your opinion on a team with a mix of distance work combined with people working on location? Well, here's the thing though, Vidar. I don't really have experience with that because all the thing that I've done is I've always worked in-house, right? Sure, like I work hybrid now, so like 2 days of the week I work from home, but that is not different compared to like working on location. The closest that I've probably gotten was when I was working at Ubisoft and we were working with a lot of outsource. So yeah, like would get up, we would talk to people in the Philippines, and then in the evening we would talk to people in Toronto. But that's different. That's also completely different as working together with those people on like let's say the same location, right? Because the benefit about doing outsource that way is that usually outsource is you hand them a brief and they come back with the assets, you give a bit of feedback and they do a couple of iterations and that's it. If let's say me and my level designer are working in like completely different parts of the world, that would add so much friction into that relationship that if I had the choice, I would rather be with them in the studio. But that's again coming from like a perspective where that's always the way that I've done stuff. So I can see that there's also a way to make that like really feasible to do that remote. I just haven't had a chance to do that yet. Which, again, hopefully a couple of months, I'll let you know. You know how that goes. Beyond Extend Indie Studio? When? So, God. It is interesting, right? Just the idea of having an indie studio. But that would mean that if we're gonna take that serious, like there's no way to do that now. As in like the way that I want to do it is I want to make a game by myself or like do it with like a very small team. And then honestly, maybe at that point, if we struck gold with something, then we would do something with like a studio, right? Because yeah, otherwise it's not something that I necessarily have an interest in. Especially not currently. But I'm not saying no to it, you know? You've worked remote like 90% of your career. What you're mentioning is usually ironed out by good producers. But if you don't have good production, it gets chaotic. Yeah. Thanks for the insights. No worries. Thank you, Davey Lee, for subscribing. Hello, Veer. Good to see ya. But I mean, everyone... Here's the thing, though, right? Like, everyone has... I think... I'll speak for myself, but I feel like everyone loves playing around with the idea of like, oh, what if I can make my own game and make my own studio and all that kind of stuff. But what that actually means is that for the most part, you're just going to be doing like a shit ton of admin on top of work that you're already doing. And I'm already doing that with Beyond Extend just in general and getting the course and all that kind of stuff out. So there's just no bandwidth like for it. But hey, who knows? Let's see, Zoe, I have experience with working in a team where half of us were in and half remote, and it didn't actually make a difference that much because we just called them and they'd be in dailies. Yeah. Yeah, like it could work, but I'm not too worried about like if something goes wrong, you can just call them up, right? Or if you need them, you can just call them up. That's not really what I'm that concerned of. I'm more concerned about losing those creative conversations that you aren't a part of to begin with. And that's also, that doesn't happen in every studio, right? I want to say that straight away. There's companies and studios that are really good with cultivating that. But there's also companies that kind of suck at cultivating it too. But it's really interesting when it happens that you can just jump into a conversation that like two other people are having, and you can just jump in and add your ideas to the mix, and that creates like this interesting melting pot of just like ideas that then get added to the game, right? That is the way that if I had to choose, then I would do game development that way. Like, and that means that you potentially have to keep like everything super small, have everyone have to be in-house, and then do it that way, right? But hey, we will see. My singular reference for being an 8-week student project is probably screwing my experience. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You can't take that as like a benchmark for anything, right? Like the stuff that you do between like students that have, first of all, no experience, and then also completely different opinions on what like actual work ethic is. Yeah, it gets chaotic really quickly. Have you heard of the studio Rebel Wolves? Yeah, those are like ex-CD Projekt Red people, right? Looks very promising. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of cool like splinter groups that are now splitting off and like making their own games. It's really cool to see. It is just, God, I wish them all the best, you know? Like, and that sounded so sarcastic, but I really do. But it's just like, I say that with a way of like, there's so many games coming out that I feel like as you're developing a studio, right? As you're building a studio, I really feel that like the all-in bet on the AAA model, like what they're probably doing, is just so risky. Because everything literally has to be like spick and span, and it has to be like 100% there. And the timeline needs to match, and the funding needs to be right, and the team needs to be good on all fronts, because it's like this massive machine where like if one of the cogs is slightly misaligned, the whole thing just like falls apart. Really excited for Arc Raiders at the end of the month. Yeah. So like, I think a good example, I think we talked about this last time, right? Is Obsidian Entertainment. Where they just, of course, they're like a really established studio. So they kind of have like a different starting base, right? It's not like a newly founded studio. But the way that they're going about like game creation now seems like very interesting. Like it's like a very interesting study, I feel, for if you want to build a diversified like studio where not everything is going to be a hit, and you kind of build your studio up as like not everything is going to be 100%, but we're aiming for like great instead of perfect, right? And then it also allows you like a little bit of like what would you call it, like a little bit of it affords you to be like a little bit less pristine with what you put out, right? Because some of the stuff that they put out, like, it's great for the price point that they're at, but it's not what you expect for like a AAA, because that's not what they are. Bit of a buffer, yeah. I was gonna say it affords you more credibility with like the people that you're trying to sell to, right? Because they know that you're not trying to make like this massive AAA like kind of thing. It's like, no, they're just really down to earth, and they're going back to like what I honestly feel production felt to me like when I started in this industry, where it was like, closely aligned to the community, like really iterating upon what they did and not just doing an early access because early access is the thing to do now. You know, it was literally listening to the people and like going into it. So yeah. But who knows? Like, this industry is always going to be chaotic. It's always going to be chaotic. And I feel like we're now at an interesting crossroads where a lot of people are splintering off and trying to find like their own way of doing things because they don't agree with like the old traditional way of doing things, right? So, yeah, we'll see. But I'm really excited about this stuff though. So Sandfall is another good example, like Joe is saying. Ex-Ubisoft devs, yeah. There was I've not watched the video, but there was I mean, not that this is necessarily relevant, but I felt like a lot of the games now get created, and I think that the YouTube title was something like post burnout game creation or something like that, where we see like a trend of developers that are like so done with the way that like games are made in like this very overblown like AAA fashion, right? Which still has its place, don't get me wrong, but then they're like, hey, look, I just want to do something different. Like, I don't fit in this mold anymore. And they just like, they make stuff like Peak, and they make stuff like, I don't know, like all these small games. They're really cool. Leia is asking, do you think we will see more studios forming from AAA splinter groups in the future? I mean, I feel like we've seen a lot of them already. And there's definitely going to be more of them in the future, for sure. I mean, I feel like they're honestly constantly forming, right? It's been happening as long as I've been in this industry. Because if you think about it, right? Like, it's also from like a money perspective, it's also the thing that you kind of want to sell, right? Like, if you're thinking about getting investor money as an ex-developer for like the big companies, what you kind of want to showcase is that you know what you're doing, you are reliable, and that you've built like a core team that is able to weather the storm, right? And that is that's going to give you like a higher percentage chance that you're going to get like funding, rather than a person that doesn't have any of that experience and is just like knocking on your door to get that same sort of funding, right? So that's also why we're seeing it so much, because it is kind of like this mechanism to also get like additional attraction, cur interest, and then also like potentially get investor money as a result of it as well. Peak is hella fun. Hell yeah. Hello, Evelyn. And Borak is saying, definitely we're seeing it already. Yeah. I think we are. For sure. I think, yeah, like I said, like I feel like I'm going around the circles a little bit, right? It's like, that seems to me that is where the next wave of really interesting, successful games are going to be. I feel like, don't get me wrong, AAA is still going to be there. AAA is still going to be going strong. But I feel like we're going to have this like underdog like current that is just going to make some really interesting creative games that are going to be setting up like new IPs for the future. And that's the stuff that I'm interested in as well. Rather than, hey, how can we adapt like this IP that we've had for a while or that is in the back catalog, and how can we use that to make like more money, right? I mean, obviously there's like creators behind it too, but yeah. It's going to be interesting to see. But yeah, and I'm going to be a part of that wave now. We'll see how it goes. Yeah. And Vera's saying, I feel like there's going to be a renaissance of sorts. I think that we're already in it. And if I had to make an assumption, what is happening is that you see games like Schedule 1, Peak, you know, you name like Repo, like all these games where like there's a couple of factors here, right? So you see like developers just working for like a AAA company. Usually I think that they did that because it gave them like a sense of security, right? Because AAA for the longest time was seen as like the secure Like, oh, you go there and you get like stability, you get to like build, you get to build a company, you get to build like the people that you're around with, and you get to build like long-term connections. But then obviously we went through like the last couple of years and that facade is completely gone. And coinciding with that, you see like these smaller games like really kick off. I feel like that was like a trigger for a lot of people to just be like, hey, look, we have all this experience, we have all this knowledge, and we're kind of ready to take a new step, right? And they're just looking at like, okay, how can we like introduce some of that like creative spirit back into the mix and do their own thing. So I think yeah, like all these smaller games that are now like being built by like people in most cases that have no experience, right? Or have built up experience through like very alternative means, let's say building games for Roblox and all that kind of stuff. And they're doing it in a completely different way than what traditional AAA developers are used to. Then yeah, you cannot but look at that and be just like, I kind of want a slice of that pie, you know? Zoe, that's a very good question. I don't think anyone has an answer to that though. I think for the longest time it was the amount of money that like a project would cost, right? But be like, yeah, triple A, I don't know. It's a very good question, but I just don't have the answer to it. I guess it's just I guess it's just vibes. Because I mean, you could arguably say that like there are games that are punch above their weight when it comes to like the class that they should be in, right? So maybe Claire Obscure was like on the border of it, but then I feel like that's more double A just because of the size of the company, right? But then you also have things like the Callisto Protocol, which was like attached to EA, but then it was also like a small project for them that is like triple A, and it's like I don't know. I honestly, I mean, I've been in this industry for like 10 years now, and I still find that those criteria like very dumb. You know, like I don't know. Hello, Zeno. It is a dumb criteria, yeah. Yeah, so yeah, the Callisto Protocol is definitely triple A, right? So like to me, what I've always looked at when it was like, oh, this is triple A or not, was like the amount of polish and attention to detail that a game had. I didn't care about like the amount of money, the amount of stuff. Like it's just like, hey, look, I guess graphics. Yeah, I think Slate. That's a good point. Like graphics, right? Like top of the line graphics, or at least like very high fidelity graphics, usually get assigned to like AAA as well, right? You can tell which game is indie and which game is AAA. Yeah, but it's weird, right? Because like sometimes if you look for like, okay, like let's say Far Cry or like I don't know, like another game, right? Like you can easily distinguish both of them. But then sometimes it gets weird where like you have the ones that are in the gray zone. Oh no, Zoe. No, there's no certificate. There's nothing like that. There's nothing like that. It's just like a made up term in I think I don't know if it's made up, but it definitely sounds made up. Yeah. But there's no like stamp of like triple A approval, you know? Because I mean, if you look at Ubisoft, right? Like they proclaimed, oh well, sorry, not the whole company. Like Yves Guillemot proclaimed that Skull and Bones was like a quadruple A project, right? So who knows? If a game has a functioning watch on the character's arm that syncs it to the console or PC time, that's what makes it AAA? Yes. That specific thing. Like if your game doesn't have a watch, then you can't make it a AAA. It's not even a game. Yeah, what are we really doing? If it doesn't have a watch, let's be real. Someone was really inspired by batteries one day. Let's see. Veer is asking. Well, first, Veer is saying no watch must still be in beta. Yeah, early access. We're still building the watch, guys. Like the watch is still with the outsource company, you know. Veer is asking, did it take you a long time for modeling to feel like second nature to you? I've been getting so bogged down by the technical side, proportional topology, that it hasn't been fun lately. Yeah, that takes a long time. Like, honestly. So, okay, so specifically, you mention feel like second nature to you, right? I'm gonna say something that is probably gonna blow your mind. But that only, and this is gonna sound like I'm part of the cult, but that only happened when I switched to Blender. Like, there was something about like Max and Maya that for me just like didn't 100% click like Blender does. So that means that I've only been using Blender for like the past 4 years, 5 years, I can't remember. And that's when it really just started clicking, you know? I was really comfortable in Maya. I knew like all the shortcuts and I was like really good with them. But it wasn't to the same degree that I'm now comfortable or like it feels like second nature as in Blender. Blender supremacy. Do you use Blender at work? Yes, I do. So we do use Max because all the programs, and this is very common, right? So this was the same thing at Ubisoft. Like usually they have their defined pipeline, but usually what you can do is just like if it works to get your stuff into that pipeline whatsoever, then it works, right? There are certain things that you have to do where it's like you can't use Blender and then you have to use like the in-house pipeline for it, which is fine, but for the most part I use Blender, yeah. Do you discourage anyone from using Maya? No, not really. Like I honestly don't discourage anyone from using any program. I do it for fun, like in our community, right? But if you are really good in Maya, then I'm not going to tell you to switch to Blender because that doesn't make sense. Because at the end of the day, a tool is just a tool. Like it depends on how you use it and if you're comfortable with it. And there's other things to focus on, right? Because I've used Max, I've used Maya, and I've used Blender. I've used all three of them. I have my personal preference, but that might also mean that that's not like your preference, right? Oh, I saw that, Slate. I saw that. Substance modeler. I mean, yeah. So I think the minimum thing that I look at, right? If you're serious about becoming like a game artist and you're coming at me with like SketchUp, yeah, I'm sorry, my guy, we're not going to be using SketchUp for this, you know? But that's like the minimum bar, right? If you use Max, Maya, or Blender, then it's all good. That's a lot later than I thought it would been. That's like 6 years into your career, right? Yeah, but I want to be specific about your word second nature, right? Because I was comfortable in Maya and Max, but I wasn't. It didn't feel like second nature. It didn't feel intuitive to me. So yeah. Let's see. Leia is asking, do you think the classifications that junior, mid, and senior still apply, especially for applications, as junior positions are so rare to come by nowadays? Yeah, they definitely do. They definitely do. They definitely still have their value. It's just this industry has a tough time like sticking to what a unified value is, right? I mean, we're never gonna even come to like a unified value. And let's also I'm even less of a fan of like what the current or like the most recent wave was, where it's like you don't only have junior, mid, and senior. You have junior 1, 2, and 3, mid 1, 2, and 3, and then senior 1, 2, and 3, and then principal 1, 2, and 3, whatever, right? It's like it was already like pretty confusing to figure out like what each company meant with like junior, mid, and senior, and then we're starting to add like numbers into the mix as well. It makes it so confusing for no reason whatsoever. But if you're asking this in relationship to like, hey, should I apply for an application that only has like mid or senior, you should always do that. Like, if it comes down to application, just send it off. You have nothing to lose. Because what might happen is that they see like, hey, they really like something about your portfolio, but they don't have the space for, or they might have like an open application that is coming up in a month that you don't know about, and they already put you on that list. No? Junior with a minimum 10 years of experience? God, yeah. Yeah, the whole experience thing doesn't make sense. Principal 3 sounds insane. Yeah, I don't know if like companies do that, but just the whole 1, 2, and 3 thing, like just like God. Oh yeah, graduate and junior. So I can sorta agree with that still, right? But then if we start adding numbers to the mix, then My last studio didn't even have junior, mid, and senior. It was just the amount of experience you had. It is weird though, right? Because like I know, for example, I mean, okay, let's take myself for example, right? I have almost 10 years experience in the industry. I have people working above me that have less experience, right? And to like an outsider that might make no sense. But like if let's say I am fully satisfied with being a senior or being focused on just like doing art, and I don't want to go into a management role, then my career kind of ends at like senior or principal, right? That's my bottleneck. That's how far as I can go. Whereas someone who wants to go into management, like they can still go through like lead and then art director and blah 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 blah. I mean, you can go to art director from like an art focused thing as well. But that's just a long way of saying that like you can have like a shit ton of experience, but you might not want a job for one reason, or you might not be good at that job or be skilled at the things that company needs you for, right? Because that amount of experience is just a number, right? So I don't know if there's like a better way of doing this, right? Because you also have companies that do like a flat structure, right? No junior, mid, senior. They just have like, hey, you're a 3D artist and that's it. Like Valve does it this way, and I'm pretty sure that the people behind Arc Raiders, forgot their name, I blank on the name for a second. They're doing it the same way too, because I think. Oh yeah, and if you're working at a startup, you know, it's the same thing for us, right? Like, there we go, Embark. Thanks, guys. Yeah, with startups is definitely different, right? Because it's more of like a flat hierarchy. You just do the job that you do, right? And then you kind of get like a random title thrown at it because the company hasn't even figured out like the title yet, right? Guys, don't start with Milkshape 3D like I did. Oh my god, I don't think I've ever even heard about that one. God dang it. Still using Max, I'm happy with it, but I haven't really learned any other modeling software. Here's also the thing, right? Like you don't need any other modeling software. If you're really good at that one thing and it does all the stuff that you do, like, and you have so much other stuff that you can learn that is actually going to add to your skill set, it's better to focus on that than to try and learn like a new tool, right? If you're saying like you might be just satisfied with the senior position and not want to move further, yeah. And it wasn't that long ago that like principal wasn't a thing yet for most companies, right? Because before you basically had junior, mid, and senior, and then from senior you would go into like lead. That was your only branch that you had access to. But that meant that if you are a senior and you want to go into and you want to just like do art all the time, then you can't, right? Because like a lead is going to be focusing more on management, which is also why a lot of companies ran into the issue of they have people that just want to do art, but they are thrown into a lead position because they have the most seniority, right? So yeah, when did principal become a thing? Well, it's hard to pinpoint it, right? But like I know that when I started, yeah, we didn't have principals. And I think when I joined Ubisoft, I don't know if they had principal. I think they did already. Like, I don't know, not that long ago, like 5 years for most companies. Because before that, I never even heard about a principal. So the odd company might have had them, but yeah, it's not well adopted as it is now. I always thought principal was another word for lead. We don't have principals. Yeah, no, like no, they're completely separate. It is for when you want to still grow in your career, but you don't want to continue down like a management or leadership track, right? That's where principal or expert or like those kind of words come in. I feel like it was 3 to 5 years ago. Yeah, I was about to say like 5 years, something like that, where it got like pretty well discussed. Oh, what? Maybe I want to be a principal someday. Let's go. Do studios want you to have certifications for any 3D modeling softwares? No, I don't have any certifications. The only thing that matters is how good the work is and if it's technically sound and if it's like visually interesting, technically sound, and if it applies to what they're doing in some sort of vague sense at least, right? That's all that matters. Certifications in our field, like they're kind of rubbish. Like they don't really mean anything. I mean, I guess if you don't have anything else to do, this sounds so bad, but like if you don't have anything else to do, then you can add like certifications to kind of have some sort of like social proof that you can do things in that. But I feel like it's way more proficient or way more intuitive to just showcase how good you are, let's say with modeling, by making some really good models and putting them on your portfolio. My bachelor degree feels personally attacked. Oh no, with a degree, that's still different. With a degree, there's still some value that you can get out of it, right? With a certificate, I feel like it's very hard to kind of get like any sort of yeah. I don't know. I don't know anyone who got hired by just like certificates alone, you know? Degree helps for mostly visas. Yep. Yep, definitely 100%. First time I heard that was in the Last of Us 2 documentary, the footage from 2020, so I assumed it was around then. Yeah, potentially. Yeah. Principles coming into the mix. It's like playing soccer, you don't need a certificate to play it. Yeah. It's also like yeah, I'm just thinking if I ever seen someone's certificate like on a CV. But I can't really think about like someone that we hired or some CV that I looked at where like their certificate was just like, oh my god, this is what's gonna make the difference. I think Japan requires a degree. Yeah, I think most companies where you have to go for a visa, right? If you want to go for like a skilled worker visa, you need or you require some sort of bachelor degree. And the higher that degree is, like the less the threshold is that they'll get you in for like a skilled worker visa, right? So I had to get my degree as well when I wanted to move to the UK. But I also do know from people that want to go to America on like a skilled worker visa that they also need to get a degree or get 9 to 12 years of actual industry experience to be the equivalent of that degree, which makes no sense to me, but that's what the rules are. Makes sense. A certificate is proof you can work while a portfolio is proof of completed work. Well, even with a certificate or like with your portfolio, right? If you do your breakdowns well, you want to showcase that you did the work, right? Because what most companies are going to do if they have, well, if they just have like any slight concerns about like, hey, if you can actually do the work, even if you did like thorough breakdowns of your portfolio and all that kind of stuff, they're just going to give you an artist anyway. Because a degree is also something that you can relatively easily get in most places, right? Or it has to be like something really accredited that is like internationally recognized, right? Then maybe I could add to it. Yes, yes. Yeah. It's you needed to have a bachelor's to move from Belgium to the UK for work. Is that still the case? Yeah, it's whenever you want to apply for a visa, you have to do that. I think it is somewhere, it is something like, okay, either you have like X amount of experience in the field, right? Where you can prove that you would be a benefit and you would be able to apply to a skilled worker visa, or you have to show a degree, right? So, and I think in the case of juniors, for example, it is if you want to move as a junior from Europe to the UK, like ignoring like all the other restrictions, um, you would probably need a bachelor, yeah, to prove that you are a skilled worker, and that's the way that you're getting in. But yeah, that's not happening with like the rules that they changed last year, because they need to pay you at least like 38,000 for a skilled worker visa now, which is like not happening for juniors. Recently discovered Spart's work. Oh yeah, he was like one of the big guys behind like Halo. Such a massive inspiration. How many years of experience did they ask for? Well, for me, I'm trying to remember. I don't think they asked for anything, because they probably had a look by themselves and then they just found out that I was credible. But I don't know what they based it on necessarily. But because I basically gave them everything, right? It's like, hey, look, God, what was it again? I needed to. Let me think. So I needed to prove that I had a bachelor degree, right? So that was one. I also needed to prove that I actually worked at like Ubisoft and Frontier. So I have to give them like points of contact, and they probably reached out to them to like prove that it was actually like work experience. But I don't know how many years they asked for necessarily. But yeah. And that is something that you'll encounter. Like, that's probably going to be the same. I don't know what the rules are, but I assume that is going to be the exact same if you want to go from the UK to Europe, right? Which is unfortunate, because I can tell you this: it was so much easier before Brexit. It is so weird having lived in this place like before Brexit and after Brexit, and then coming back and all that kind of stuff. It feels so much more hassle, so much more hassle than what is needed. It is weird. Right. Anyway, enough yapping. Let's switch this over to some feedback, shall we? Let's if you want to get your feedback seen first, raise your hands. I think, let me see. We're gonna make a potential exception if who were we talking to at the beginning? God. Again, memory like a sieve. I honestly have no idea who was gonna go to sleep really early. They might have already gone to sleep. Was Zoe? Was it Zoe? Oh no, it was someone else. Because Zoe didn't get included, right? Which we'll see at the end of the session. But there was someone else that was like, God, I can't remember. We're just gonna skip it. So Slate, we'll go with you first. Let me switch on over. Charlie. There we go. That was it. Charlie Chrome. Thank you, Vidar. But I think Charlie might have already gone by the sounds of it. If you're here, Charlie, let me know. Maybe we'll swoop you in there. Let's see. So, Slate. Start out with you. I haven't done notes for a lot of people yet, so we're gonna have to figure this out on the fly. All right. My memory is that bad. Oh, it's even worse than my. So you're all good. Arya, I want to be an environment artist. What should I focus on more? Well, I think the answer is in the question, right? So in the beginning, if you want to get started, start working on like single props. Work your way up to small dioramas, then go to bigger environments. You need to get yourself comfortable with doing like the game art pipeline before you can make like environments. But storytelling is going to be an overarching theme that is going to be super important if you want to get in as an environment artist. So that would be good to keep in mind, even when you're doing assets or like single props by themselves. Cool. Let's have a look. Where am I going? I am going to look on our Discord. Let's have a look at our community chat. And then Slate. This will be a quick one. Question 1. The bridge is far from done, but do you think it has improved? Yeah, okay. We're getting some... Oh, you got like a separate mesh here. Let me just quickly pop that in. For next time, Slate, can we add some like reference? And this is a good thing to keep in mind for anyone that wants to get feedback. Like if you want to get feedback on individual props or even your environments, right? Share me some references, share me some inspiration, and then we can go by something that has already been done, right? Because otherwise it's just gonna be going from memory, and that's gonna be always a little bit trickier. But what I'm seeing, I do like though. We got like some of the rebar showing, which is cool. I like it. It is not done yet. Like what I kind of want to see is like the brown from the rebar sticking out, right? So that we can see like the actual metal being rusted. That would be cool. And then more layering, right? Like more just like grime and gunk and like massaging like those areas together. Like more textural detail. But we're going to go over that really quickly because you said that it's still work in progress anyway. We're not going to be spending too much time talking about it. Myro is updated if you're interested. It would be super helpful if you can just grab like the most relevant things and just add them in the Discord for next time, because otherwise it's going to get chaotic from my side. Because if I have to then do that for like 20 people potentially, it's going to be chaotic. It saves me a bunch of time. It would be really appreciated. Let's see. What do you think so far has been improved? I do like it though. It's looking really nice. I like the breakup on the silhouette. We're getting some of these nice like small little angles, you know? It doesn't feel like it's just like very basic. So honestly, awesome improvements. That's an awesome job. Second question, for an asset like this bridge, what's the best texturing workflow? I used the 0 to 1, so like unique textures. To one space, I made a simple kit and duplicated the elements. Yep. Is this a newbie workflow, or should I follow a more complex one like RGB masks? No, you don't need to do any fancy stuff. Like, honestly, the majority of things are going to be just fine if you just do it like the way that you do it. Because something like this, I don't know what your textures look like, right? But if you just have, let's say something like this, and then you have, what are we going to be doing? So let's say you have 2 of these plates, and then you have like all your little things in here, and that is just going to be the texture. That is just going to be the texture of your prop, right? That allows us to honestly make whatever kind of setup for the bridge that we want, right? Because now we have like full flexibility. If you want to make the bridge longer, we can do so. And the only thing that we need to do is just duplicate these guys over and then rotate them around. And then we have something that looks pretty nice. The only thing that you need to keep in mind is where stuff will be interacting with each other, right? Like we need to keep in mind that that is going to be the major restriction, because let's say we do like this sort of texturing where we have like this on here, that means that there always needs to be a pole here, right? Because that connection is going to be there. That's the major limitation about doing something like this. If you want to have more flexibility, then you have to detach your texturing from the placement of the asset, which can then be done with vertex painting, RGB masking, like all that kind of stuff, right? Or even making like a new texture set or something like that. But that is honestly the only consideration. So yeah, because honestly, for the most part, and this is good advice for everyone, right? You don't need to go fancy. My name was mentioned. Yeah, do you want me to slot you in, Charlie? We can slot you in here, get you seen, and then you can head to bed or whatever you have going. I don't know what time zone you're in. Yes, like honestly, like yeah, again, for everyone, you don't have to make it super complex. For the most part, like doing it simple and effective is going to be all you need to do. RGBA masking, I see a lot of people doing this. You don't need it in like 90% of the times. So yeah, let's keep it simple. Cool. That's it for you, Slate. Thank you for showing your work. Nice little updates. Yeah, good stuff. Let's see. Charlie. Sorry, remind me of your Discord name again. I'm taking a gamble. Should have done this a little bit earlier in prep. There's always a little bit of delay here. Yeah, Super Steaks, there we go. Okay, cool. Let's have a look at this. And then we'll jump on to like the normal routine again. If I didn't lose it. Let me quickly check. Ah, it's still there. Okay. So let's have a look. This is cool. So what's your recommended process for planning projects like this? Could you go into order what you need to do things in and what you prioritize? At the moment, I'm focusing on composition from 2 angles for portfolio shots, but obviously in a game it has to read well from many angles. Yeah, but if you have the benefit of not having to worry about that many angles if you're doing personal work. So for you, I would honestly throw the whole game thing out and just focus on like your camera angles, because that's the only thing that's going to matter for you in this case. And that's already going to make it 1,000 times easier. So you want to focus on the camera angles that already exist. And then the other part of the question was planning projects like this in order of doing things. I mean, if we have to go like a quick order, like I do like a bunch of research, a bunch of reference gathering, right? I want to know what I'm making before I'm going into what I'm making. And I go pretty thorough. Like I want to know exactly what my focal point is going to be. I want to know exactly what assets that I need to like build around it, like supporting assets. I want to know exactly, or I want to get like a good idea of what the mood is going to be. what lighting that I'm gonna go for, and then I just go straight into block out, right? And then it is literally like a very traditional thing where I do like a bunch of blockouts, because this is supposed to be like super quick, right? A blockout doesn't need to be clean, it needs to be in superficial form so that we can move stuff around really quickly. It's more about like iterating really quickly, shoving things around, making sure that everything works. And that main focus is composition, right? So that's the main focus. Once we have that done, once that is in a good shape, then we can go into like adding detail, right? And we're keeping this very vague because this depends on how you work, right? Some people love to work in a very systematic order where they're gonna do like a pass on everything, and then they do like a detail pass on everything, and then they do a texture pass on everything. That's one way of working. I honestly prefer working from the focal point outwards, because then I focus on the stuff that is needed for the scene, and I can cut corners on stuff that is not crucial to the scene. So yeah, we go blockouts, and then we go modeling, and then I focus on the focal point, right? So with a focus on the focal point. And then we go into texturing. There's a little bit of a lighting pass in here as well, like we do like a base lighting pass in here. And then afterwards we do like a proper lighting pass. Because again, we kind of do the same thing in the blockout. Like once we have the blockout done, we can then just block in the light. And then as soon as it's somewhat representable, it just gets shoved to the background because I see what I'm doing. I kind of know the intention of it. It's fine, right? We can just ignore it and leave it till the end. So proper lighting, and then post-processing, right? Very quick overview. Very quick overview. There's a lot of stuff that goes in between, right? And sometimes you have to think. One big thing is iterate. I cannot stress this enough. This is the core of any project, of any game that you're going to be working on. It doesn't need to be great, or like it doesn't need to be perfect, or it doesn't need to be great for anywhere near the beginning. It's just about trusting the process and being like, hey, look, I'm going to put this block out in, zoom out. Does this look good? Okay, I'm just going to move it about. Cool, get a good composition going, and you can still tweak it later, right? So yeah, it's about iteration. And it's literally about like just getting stuff into the engine as quick as possible, iterating, playing around with the shapes, playing around with the composition, tweaking it over time, and it's going to get better and better and better. Number 2, could you expand a little bit on your views on reference gathering, particularly for stylized work? I know real-life references are ideal, but if the work is stylized, sci-fi, etc., I don't have a concept artist working under me. What's the best way to get references for these things? Still real life. Everything comes from real life. That image that I shared when you were asking this question in the community chat, nothing changes. Whatever project you're doing, find references from real life. If you're doing a sci-fi project, you're probably going to be looking at very modern private jets. If you're doing like a spaceship, right? And you want to make something like, for example, in Star Citizen, you're going to be looking at private luxury air jets or something like that, right? You get a lot of inspiration for those things. If you want to take, let's say you want to make like stylized, like flowers, look at the most unique flowers that exist in real life. You're gonna be like astounded by like what exists in just nature itself. And then the only thing that you do is you take those things and you just change the proportions a little bit so that they're a little bit more fluffy, or a little bit more, I don't know, like that the head of the flower is like larger than the petals, you know? And then you can start building some sort of like art direction for yourself. This is also why I say anything in stylized, if you're not taking it from a concept and you want to do your own thing, is going to be way more difficult because you have to do that stylization layer on top of anything that's coming from realistic. When do you think it's a good time to focus on lighting? A little bit in the beginning when you're blocking out, and then at the end. But this is the thing, right? Like that's the ideal way. What I do is whenever I get tired of looking at other stuff, I just tweak my lighting and I make like very incremental changes where I know that the changes are not going to be final, but I'll just tweak it a little bit. And then I'll just go back to modeling. And then I'll come back like a couple days later and maybe tweak it a little bit more. Another good tip that I'll give is take daily screenshots, because you might realize that you lost something from like a couple of days ago that you want to get back, and if you don't have a visual reference, you're kind of losing it forever. So yeah, I hope that helped. Even with like stylized references, again, it all starts from real life. And then you just need to like add your way of stylization on top of it, right? That's why you can look at certain games or certain styles, and they will have their core rule set that they use throughout the whole thing. Whether it is like, hey, if we do like all the shapes need to be super blocky, right? Like for example, Minecraft, that's like a giveaway, right? That is like they take stuff from real life and then just like mash it into their container that is their stylized. That is their art direction, right? So yeah. But yeah, don't underestimate like this step. This takes a lot of time. Would you say approaching a stylized project with no concept is tougher than? Yes. Anything without a concept is way more tougher than anything else, because now you're not focusing on executing, you're focusing on designing as well. And this not only goes for stylized. If you do any project without a concept, especially sci-fi is a good example, right? So sci-fi, if you don't know how to design and you want to make a sci-fi thing yourself, you are going into a world of pain, because any good sci-fi thing is built on great rules of design. If you don't know those, you're setting yourself up for failure. And that's just the way it is. That's why also everyone loves to do like a sci-fi corridor, right? But they're one of the most difficult things to do as a beginner, because you underestimate how much time designing goes into those things. And that's why a lot of people give up on them, because at a certain point you realize that like your skills in designing need to be stronger for you to then be able to execute on top of them, right? That's why in the beginning it's just way easier to focus on the concept, because then you're not doing two jobs, you're doing one job. And then at a certain point, if you've done enough repetitions in just like executing on things, then you can expand in designing your own stuff, right? And the same thing is happening here. Like if you haven't experimented with like different art directions and you haven't tried different ways of stylizing a project, then you're gonna have to call in like your friends for help, like you're saying, or you're gonna have to do more designs yourself, right? It's not that it's impossible, and I don't want to scare you away from it, but you're just adding like another layer of complexity onto the whole project, where if you just want to focus on one skill to improve, it's always going to be easier. Getting a good 50 to 200 references and then creating a reference hierarchy is a good solid start. Yeah, it's that would be a good start. It doesn't have to be like a certain number either, right? It just has to be like the ones that you need. Because for example, you could have like that one shot that has like really good lighting, and it's like, that's the lighting that I want. Cool. That's it. Don't need anything else, you know? Obviously, if you really want to understand something, let's say it's a prop, then you're gonna have like a lot of references for those things because you need to figure out like how they're built, like all the details and all that stuff. Yeah. Thank you for sharing your work, Sleeper Steaks. Let's keep moving on. Just to answer the question in the chat as well. So Arya was asking, how can I send a project to you? Thank you for already answering the question, Slate, but just to, as a reminder, you can join our community. You can join our community, and then anyone that's a member of our community can sign up for like these weekly feedback sessions. Thank you, and thanks for pushing me sooner. Yeah, you're welcome. Happy to help. Designer is asking, do you think it's better to stick 100% to a concept or make some changes of your own? Here's the thing. If you are uncomfortable with making changes that are going to improve upon the concept, it is better to stick with the concept. If you are a little bit more confident about your artistic abilities and you can see from a concept that you can already make like, hey, I love this, but what if I do this, right? Because what's going to happen is that if you have your work and your concept, you're inviting comparison between the two, right? And if you then invite comparison between the two and that other person sees that like, hey, you made a different change here, which is maybe not the right direction for the concept, that might stick out, right? But yeah, I would, in my opinion, like I would hate having to work and stick to a concept 100% all the time. I have never done that with my personal work, and I have never done that in my professional work either. There's always iterations and changes and all that kind of stuff coming to it, right? Because here's the thing though, like most concepts, they are not so precise that they want you to execute on it like 100%. But it's your job as an environment artist to figure out what the core intentionality behind the concept is, and then transferring that into 3D, right? Because regardless of what you try to do, going from 2D to 3D, you will have to make changes. And then if you don't know how to make those changes on like an artistic level, you're going to get stuck at that point. So yeah. It's a good question though. It's a good question. I like it. Where is my chat? I keep losing track of my chat. There we go. Okay. Who is next? So we got Sergio is next. Let's have a look. Under the Veil. Would love general feedback on this, but also specific feedback. As a reminder, I will only look at specific feedback. I will skip general feedback unless it's really standing out to me. Are the secondary buildings, especially the third and the second from left to right, more balanced now? Did you get skipped? Did you get skipped? That's a great question. Let's have a look. You did get skipped. I skipped a whole bunch of people. Oh, no. You didn't get skipped. You're next. You're next, Leia. You're fine. You're fine. Sergio is first, and then it's you right after. So, especially, it was confusing because Charlie had to go, so I kind of snuck him in there. So, the second and the third building left to right, are they more balanced now? I reduced the contrast to match the concept more closely. Yeah? Looks good to me. Oh, on your screen, Leia was second? Oh, really? Oh, there might be like a little bit of a delay then. Well, good to know. On my screen. Well, okay. There's a difference in screens then. Dang it. YouTube isn't always accurate. Yeah, thanks, YouTube. Causing my own community to riot against me. Reduce the contrast to match the concept more closely. Yeah, I think honestly that's good. I don't really have anything to say. Looks good to me. Let me quickly check the concept. The concept is slightly darker from what I can tell, right? If we're copying and pasting this here. We're copying and pasting this here. Oh, there we go. It's the big boy. It is slightly darker, but honestly, like these kind of things, I wouldn't. We're gonna iterate on this, right? And this is so easy to fix at the end, as we did all of it. You can kind of see that it is slightly darker still, but that's honestly fine. Like we can tweak that with like fake lighting volumes and whatever. Topg is asking, by the way, I like the background music. Where's it from? It's actually from a friend of mine. Her link is in the description. It's from Marika. So go check out her work. She has like a bunch of her work on Spotify as well that you can check out for free. So go and support her. She's awesome. Let's have a look. Second question is, do you think it's fine to use the same mural? Oh yeah, I read this before. It's a good question. I mean, if we're gonna be sticking close to the concept anyway, then I think it's all fine to reuse the same mural as well and kind of stick really closely to the concept, right? Yeah. In this case, what you could be doing is try to figure out where does that come from. Right? Like, what was the inspiration behind that mural? I don't know if you're able to figure that out. I'm just saying that as in a way, like, maybe that can give you some extra inspiration to then do additional stuff to your scene that is relevant to where this inspiration came from, right? Yeah, I have honestly no concerns if you're just doing like 100% like recreation. I didn't even find it on the internet. Yeah, I would assume that it's like a homemade thing, right? That he made it themselves. That's why I'm saying like you might not even find where it's coming from, but there must be some sort of like inspiration that he got it from, right? And then maybe you can learn something more about like where he gets his inspiration from. I don't know. It might be something super local as well that he just saw on one of his travels and he was like, "Oh, this is sick. Like, let me do that." I don't know. Pretty cool to look into. I reckon you could put that into like a diagonal shape in the silhouette from the very top. In the silhouette from the very top. I'm losing it. What are you referring to? Zoe. Let me read that again. So I reckon you could put that in that diagonal shape on the silhouette from the very top. Oh, like... Oh, I'm not... I'm pointing at my OBS. Dumb. We're talking about this shape? I'm not sure. Anyway, let's see. Because you experimented with various things such as graffiti and tags, but they're too distracting. Yeah, they're usually so... they're usually so noisy, right? They have like a lot of textural detail. So this is something nice. A friend gave me a nice idea to have neon paint over the mural, something like with Jinx in Arcane. Yeah. I mean, that's up to you, right? I feel this is the thing with like art direction, you can make a counterpoint to this as well, where it's like, okay, but nothing else is neon, so it might feel like really out of place. But hey, it's up to you, right? Like sometimes, honestly, with all of this stuff, I would try it and then see how it works. Yes. Cool. Gotta test it out. Yeah. Oh, there's a few diagonal roof bits that are enhance the silhouette. Oh, like some of this stuff, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Like it's almost like a landing pad and like a takeoff pad for like this car or something like that. It feels like the proportions are so off. Yeah. Could be cool. Thank you, Sharon, for subscribing. Appreciate it. But yeah. Nothing too much more to add to this. Great stuff though. It's coming along really nicely. And just keep chugging along, honestly. Like I don't see the reason why I'm not even hesitant, right? Like I'm so minimal with the feedback is because this is going splendid. I have no concerns about what you're doing. It's more like I'm also trying to pull back a little bit, as in I want you to take more control and get more confident about like your abilities with that too, right? If there's something glaring and obvious, then I'll jump in and we'll definitely talk about it. But it's a good thing that I'm not saying that much. So yeah, cool stuff, Sergio. Thank you for sharing your work. Nice, and I think then it was Leia, right? If I remember correctly. Do a quick scan here. Leia, there we go. Leia, and then Vidar, and then Mike. Cool. Leia, I got a couple of notes for you. Did a little bit of prep. Great work. Hell yeah, it is great. And this one is great as well. It's going along nicely. I think your main question, if I remember correctly, was just like priorities for week 2 when it comes to like the next iteration of your scene, right? Let me get the Discord up here. Let's make sure that we get that right. So many scenes. Oh, stop one. There we go. How can I add more visual interest to the scene in the L2 stage, be it in diversity of geometry or in the materials, etc.? Yeah. So this is basically what I wanted to focus on here, right? And I wanted to keep it more broad, is like how to add details. If you can read like my God, my writing is so horrible sometimes. Let me translate. So how to add details. First thing that I would do is look for well, if we're gonna organize this in a way where we're gonna be focusing on, right? The easiest thing to do is always just silhouette variation, right? I know you did like a pass on it where we have like a little bit of this and we have like a curve here and it's starting to look really nice. I like what you're doing with these roofs. But we can extend that to like literally everything else, right? Like all these pillars, like if they're just like slightly offset and slightly different shapes, then that's gonna add a lot to like the visual appeal to like this this wall. I don't know if I... God, it's been so long since I had my own PureF open for my medieval scene. Let's see. Let's have a look. Let's just that open. So yeah, just like a little bit of like silhouette variation can add a lot still, right? And even also just like breaking up, like, oh, there's a couple of tiles missing here, you know, that we just have like a couple of tiles missing. Maybe one is like longer. That kind of stuff adds a lot. Same thing here, right? Like cutting out like a couple of tiles, making sure that like the silhouette here has like a couple of breakout tiles. That kind of stuff is really easy to do. Well, from like a feedback perspective, at least. Second thing that I would focusing on is weathering. So that means like weather effect and stuff. Let me show you my ref board here though. So let me see, where do we go? Got assets, we got the carpenter. It's been a while since I looked at this. Baskets. Masonry. I had like a section for buildings as well. There we go. And these are like all recreations, right? But you can tell like this like wooden roof, look at how organic that is, right? Because it's all made by hand. So you can kind of tell that it has like this nice, like real organic looking curve to it. That is really cool to try and replicate. And the same thing here, right? Like all these logs, they kind of have like a little bit of an offset. And everything is like very wonky and curvy and it's all like hand manufactured. That is some really cool stuff to like look into. Same thing with these like roofs, right? Like look at how like wonky and curvy they are. And even this balustrade, which is like very rigid, it has like curve that like curves like outside of it, right? Just because of the pressure of the wood. Same thing here. Look at the curves on this, right? It's so cool. And then this is like an example that I wanted to bring up. Like, even though they're all supposed to be the same height, there's so much variation in this, right? And this stuff is cool because this was from like scans that they did from like a historical reenactment park in like Berlin. Really cool to have this stuff. But yeah, stuff like that, like variation in the silhouette still, and then going on to the weathering, right, where just having an impact on like how the dirt interacts with the houses, how mossy or how like yeah, mossy or rainy or wet and mossy, right? And then you can even start playing around with the with how much you do of it, right? Where an older building is going to have more of this stuff, where like if that building to the left of it is newer, it's going to have less of that stuff, right? And the same can happen with like this roof as well, right? Like underneath the roof canopy, you're probably going to see like less weathering because it's protected from the roof. But then at a certain point, you're probably going to see like more weathering, like on the main body of like the roof, and then especially where areas come into contact with themselves, like where this intersection between the roof and the tower happens, you're gonna see like a lot of buildup of just like stuff, right? Because that's where moisture collects and it's gonna rot everything. But that sort of stuff can be really impactful. Whether it's for L2, I don't know. Just giving you ideas. What was this? What did I write down? Variations that are consistent. God, I don't even know what I wrote down when. So let's just remove that. Oh, I know what I meant with that. Let me make that a little bit clearer for you though. That was talking about material consistency. Because I saw you do some cool stuff on the edges of the wall, right, on the tower. But these tiles, they don't match the underlying tileable. And if you think about it from a perspective of where this is built, right, it's all going to be natural stuff that they just gathered from like local quarries and all that kind of stuff. So the walls or like the buildings are going to be consistent because they're going to be built out of those materials, right? That's why if you look at if you're interested in some references, I use a lot of my references from a castle called Gideon. I don't know if you had some references yourself, but they're basically making a castle from scratch by hand themselves. Let's see. Do I have it here? Do I have it? This is an example of the castle of Gideon. Oh, this is it. So that's what they're rebuilding. And you can see the castle has that color because it is mined from like local quarries that have like I think more copper sediment in like the rocks, right? So that's why it has like a slightly different color. But it just needs to be consistent. And even this, right? You can see that there is like a different sort of weathering when it comes to the first layer that they build, and then all the layers on top of it, right? That can be cool to like replicate as well. Cool. I hope that was helpful. But yeah, something to keep in mind. Can totally have that ready for next week. It's in France, I know that one. Yeah, I do want to go there. Like if we're moving back to Belgium, I do want to plan a trip there somehow. That would be good. I probably, if I go to that place, I probably know it by hand because I've seen so much of it. Oh my god. Yeah, good stuff though. Good stuff. The same material consistency can also be said about the planks, by the way, too. Just wanted to mention that as well. Get all the materials nice and consistent. It's gonna look sick. Right. Great stuff, Leia. Thank you for showing your work. Exactly, Vidar. Vidar is super excited to see this continuation of this. Looking great already. Let's go. Okay, has a quick question. Since I'm making the project for the challenge, is it weird to take more time to polish the scene further after the challenge is over? As I plan to add it in my portfolio? Nope. Totally not. You can post it for the challenge and then tweak it afterwards for your portfolio, right? That's totally fine. That is totally a-okay. Let's see, who was next? So next up, Vidar and then Mike. I do not know who you are in the list, Vidar. Dang it. Let me see. Let me get a. Let me gamble. Oh no, you're here. Wait, you should be in the list. Yeah, I remember. Why are you not in here though? Did I close it on accident again? God dang it. 9-1. Oh, okay. Oops, sorry. No, that's just normal confusion that happens. I get used to it. 9-1, there we go. Cool, let's have a look. So, what can I improve in a short amount of time to make it worthy of an ArtStation post until my exam project can replace it? What is a short amount of time? Let me see. I'm trying to get that context here, right? So, I need to get some more stuff in my portfolio whilst like a week or two. Okay. So there's one main question that you need to ask yourself, right? Is basically within the given timeline, what is the minimum effort for a maximum result? And I'm talking about a visual result, right? That is the main question you want to ask yourself. What I would suggest is, again, we look at the core of this concept, right? What I'm getting is I get like a rickety like chaotic feel that is really missing from the concept. So we need to instill that into your scene somehow. Look at all these planks, right? Like all these planks are all over the place. They're like very chaotic, different shapes and sizes and all that kind of stuff. How do we apply that to your scene? Right? I'm not necessarily gonna give you like all the answers because there's a lot to look into there. But what I would look into is definitely a couple of things that are easy. Add more chaos to your assets, right? So I'm gonna head off now. See you later, Sergio. Thank you so much for participating. So add more chaos to the assets. So that's both on geometry and materials. Next step is do more with stuff that already exists. Right? We need to figure out, like, in this short amount of time, how we can make the most out of your scene without necessarily making like a whole bunch of new stuff. What that means is I will be looking at like all these like wooden trims and I will be like, okay, cool. How can I use like these pillars and these planks in a way that I can cobble together stuff, right? And for example, this guy, this very nondescript thing, we can just add like 2 pillars, add like a bunch of planks, add another pillar here, add like another couple of planks here, and kind of try to make it look like it's a part of an actual building. And then wherever you see straight lines, we have to break them up. Like everything needs to be like wonky and warbly, and there needs to be like, yeah, more chaos to the scene. As a quick little thing of feedback, there's another thing that I want to bring up. Oh wait, sorry. Second question first. So should I remake my textures for the wooden parts since it's in hindsight I realized I should have used trim sheets and tidables for everything, or should I just vertex paint over the current textures? No, that again, like that's why I'm saying minimal effort for maximum result. If you are just going to replace like something that already exists now, that is honestly a waste of time. It's too far gone for that. If you want to finish like in the next week, we're not really gaining anything visually from that, right? What we need to focus on instead is, hey, again, do more with existing assets / materials. Can I use a different texture set to maybe have a set of lighter planks and a set of darker planks, and then have more variation in the scene, right? Again, trying to replicate what's happening here, right? Try to get more of that like organic, cobbled together, chaotic look going on. So yeah, it's really time to not create new stuff, but like do more with the stuff that's already there. For example, you have your, like we said, your texture set of the wooden planks. Make 3 of them. Make them different colors, and then use it that, or just have like 3 separate base colors, and then build up the scene that way. Yeah. So that kind of answers the second question as well, right? So you don't. This is basically an answer to the second question. Is like just reuse what's already there. Now I wanna bring up some important thing. You're just doing a quick project to get stuff on your portfolio because other senior artists told you that you need more stuff on your portfolio. It is not the best way to go. I think what they mean by that is we want to see more high quality stuff, because more stuff on your portfolio is actually going to damage you more than it's going to help you. So only post stuff on your portfolio if you think that is literally the absolute best that you can do, because otherwise you are just shooting yourself in the foot. And maybe that's the feeling that I'm getting with this project, where you're just trying to rush it out because you want to get more stuff in your portfolio, where maybe if you take a step back and you just have your current portfolio on there, it is what it is. It takes time to change these things, and then give yourself a better shot like a couple months down the line with a better looking portfolio. Maybe that doesn't work with like a timeline with like studies and all that kind of stuff, right? But then you're not going to be able to change that in the next 2 weeks anyway. So the timeline for that has already passed. So I think it's better to focus on a longer timeline and put in more quality on your portfolio rather than more quantity, because that is going to have a bigger effect on your job opportunity. I can guarantee that. I spent quite a bit of time on this after work during the summer, and I just think my portfolio is lacking some environments. Yeah. Yeah, but then again, like trying to do it justice, right? Trying to put in the time that is needed to actually make this the environment that is going to be like, hey, look, this is going to be the environment that is going to put me on the map, right? Rather than, oh shit, I'm trying to fill a space. Let me just do some stuff here. I mean, also, I didn't look at your portfolio, right? So I have no clue about that, but... Zoe's saying you could just focus a little bit on one of those little huts for now. I mean, that... With a scene like this, you're not really going to gain like any benefits from it. Like normally I would agree with it, right? I mean, I've said this like a million times on this show before. But with this like heavily modular, like really generic looking housing scene, again, there's nothing wrong with those generic looking houses, right? But we kind of have to work along the set of restrictions that we set upon ourselves. Where if, for example, those houses, like one of those houses was like really cool and really unique, then I would say, yeah, ditch like the far view, zoom in onto like one thing and make it really, really good. But this scene doesn't really allow for that same sort of flexibility. So I think what we need to do is kind of zoom out and go broader. And that's why I'm focusing on the big things that are going to have an effect on like the planks and the walkways feeling super chaotic, and then doing more with the stuff that already exists, because that's going to have a bigger impact that way. So yeah, just to explain that a little bit, because again, it is good. It is good advice, Zoe. Just yeah, certain situations ask for different advice. I feel it is tricky. We're trying to do the most with what we have, right? And again, that is not to say, this is honestly how I built most of my environments too. I was always more focused on the bigger picture rather than a singular house, right? So I never had that opportunity for myself either. Same with my medieval scene, right? Like if you look up close to like some of the buildings that I made, they're okay. But they're not like to the same quality that if you spend like a lot of time working on a single building, it's not gonna come close even. So yeah. Hope that was helpful. Best of luck. I would definitely say take your time, right? Only put your best work on your portfolio, because that is going to have a better impact. That is good advice. It's always about quality or quantity. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing your work, Vidar. I hope that was helpful. And yeah, feel free to ping me again for next week if you want some more advice. Right. Let's see. That is not what I wanted to do. Go away. Who was next? So we have Mike. I didn't really have too much to say for you, Mike, I think. I did some notes already. The first thing was for a spiderweb, right? So like spiderweb improvements. I think honestly, you were thinking about cutting them. I think you could keep them. It's just the material on them could be improved just a little bit, because now it just feels like opaque, where like normally they have like that slightly see-through opacity kind of thing, right? And then also thinking about like how you can improve the shapes to add like a little bit more tension. That could have a big impact as well. And also potentially like reducing the amount and just making it like 1 or 2 corners. That's going to be enough. Because I do really think that they add something really cool to the scene. I think definitely something to work with. So I love the idea behind it. I don't want to throw it away. And then something to think about is also like which one got cleared by us. And I say us between quotes because we're the architects in the scene, right? But like if we uncovered this, like we probably wiped away like the stuff that's closest to the main thing. So that means that maybe this one can stay, but then maybe this one has already, maybe it's small, or maybe, I don't know, it's just like a crumpled up like little spider web, you know, like one that is already like swooped to the side. Yeah, something to think about. Vidar saying, wonderful insights, a bit of nerve-wracking to post here for the first time, but I'm very glad I did. I'm glad you did too, Vidar. Like, I'm glad you did too. And I don't know if you're new to the community, but I forgot to say, like, pretty happy to have you. So I'm glad you did post. And I'm always happy to see like new people coming in and posting their work. Because I know that this is like not an easy setup, you know? Just have like a live stream where we talk about your work. But I think it's very beneficial. Cool. Back to Mike then. The second thing was more talking about like the additional stuff that you did, right? So you added sand and you added tools. These are looking really good. They add like a nice touch, so I really like them. The only thing that I would say is on the sand, like try and have a bit more of a fall off so that we get like a little bit of smooth sand. You know, because now it feels like mud is caked on top of it rather than sand being uncovered, right? Just a slight difference in materials there. And then a random comment here was just these pebbles that you added on top of it. They feel, again, way too strong for like how tiny the pebbles are. So they have too much height to them as well. Same for these guys. Yeah. It's also AO. AO is pretty strong on these guys as well. So maybe if you keep the height, but like reduce the AO by a lot, that could also help. Yeah, great stuff. These renders, especially with like the reduced height on the tiles themselves, looks so nice. So yeah, short but sweet. This is awesome stuff, Mike. Looking nice. Great stuff on the presentation as well. Couple more tweaks, and I think then we're good to go. Be curious to know how you feel about it as well. Designer saying, looking awesome. Yes, it is. Oh, I don't know if you're still here. But hey, Amma. I saw you in the beginning of the stream. Oh my god. Probably no longer around anyway, but yeah, love to see you here. Cool. What is a mind player? It's like from Baldur's Gate. Like they're the giant squid Cthulhu kind of creatures. Oh yeah, sorry, Zoe, you're correct. It's from D&D, not from Baldur's Gate. I have insufficient knowledge on my D&D. I've never played it really. I only played the Dutch version. Weirdly enough. I've played one time D&D, and then I used to play Oog des Meesters. It's called like Eye of the Master or something like that. And I think it was like a Dutch, D&D clone. It's very interesting. Hey, there you are, Frida. Hope you're doing well. How are you doing, by the way? In the meantime, let's have a look. I've been in one campaign for like 4 years. Oh, shit, that's cool. See, you know, I do want to do stuff like that, you know? Like have a consistent enough friend group that we can do like a D&D campaign or something nerdy like that. Or pick up a hobby. That sounds so sad. I do wanna pick up a hobby though. Let's see. What's next? I think it was round 1, wasn't it? Oh my god, I'm looking at the chat as I'm trying to find a chat. Jesus. Let's see. So Mike, oh no, it was Guillaume actually. Guillaume and designer. Cool. Let's have a look at Guillaume. Yep, there you are. Again, no prep, so it's gonna be on the fly. When it comes to the no prep, I think what I might experiment with is maybe I'm gonna extend the submissions by 2 hours so that I have more time to actually prep. Because an hour is like really, really stressful for this amount of people. So we're gonna be playing around with that in the future. So be sure to read the announcements. Anyway, let's have a look at your work, Guillaume. Questions for Tim. Thanks again for making these questions like really easy to find. I appreciate that. What do you think about the foliage I added and my work on the marble ground? Okay. We got foliage going on. Got that foliage. That's looking cool. I like it. I do like it. So first we'll talk about the foliage. Have a look. You got like a really cool opportunity here with the foliage. It's like a triangular composition. They do this a lot in I learned actually from this from I don't know what it's called. From interior design for shops, basically from shop fronts design, where you have to like make enticing compositions. I actually learned from that when I was in school. So we can kind of do like a triangular composition. That means that we have like the smaller stuff here, and then we kind of build up to like the bigger one, right? So that means that we basically just have to like shrink these guys down and kind of roughly have them in like this position. And then we can have the big one really take up like the main piece in the back. Right? Because you're already there, like 80% there. You just have to like shrink these guys down. And then we're good to go, honestly. And that's going to be really nice to like pull the composition in. But the plants themselves, they look nice. Especially if you look at this view. I like what you did with them. I like the shape. Looking cool. With these guys, if we're going to be picky, you could potentially make more out of the shape by almost having them like, you would almost want to make like a cone that kind of like fans out a little bit more. Again, already awesome start, but just something that like fans out a little bit more. These guys are looking cool. Yeah, great stuff. And the second question was, sorry, we got some notes here. So a triangular composition. And then the foliage looks great. Let me add like a heart here. And then we got like... View is like more fanned out. That's going to be really cool. And then the marble floor, right? Marble floor is looking quite nice. One thing to be careful of is the marble floor is grabbing a lot of the attention. So if you want the attention to go to like this, that means that it would be good for the surrounding pieces to be less interesting than the pieces that we want to focus on, right? Because we're getting something like really, really nice. I really like the way that this composition is starting to like pan out, and I really, really do like it. We just have to be careful that we don't destroy it with like really noisy floor. So it would be like, I like the way you did the floor, right? There's nothing wrong about like the actual intent behind it. But I feel that it might be worth going back to something simpler. Or going to something simpler. Because, yeah, I'm scrolling back and it was always like this. We should have caught it a bit earlier. But now, yeah, before we only had like the pattern, right? And now the pattern inside of the tiles is also getting more and more attention grabbing. Fair is on the right track as well, like lower contrast, as in like lower color contrast, and also just like lower contrast in terms of like all the details that are on the individual tiles, right? So you want to almost make these super simple so that we can then focus on the things that are like actually stand out. Because yeah, everything is super contrasty, and it's almost like I disable like all my drawings. If I'm trying to think subconsciously, there's so much contrast in the tiles that I'm almost gravitating towards the tiles rather than the center of the scene, which is weird. Right? Because now we have our composition is kind of fighting against like the distraction that the tiles are causing. Designer is saying that the colors on the pattern in the tiles is too strong. Yep. Yep, I agree. Lower the contrast. It's more about I don't really know how to train for this the best, right? But it's almost like you're looking, try to put yourself in the shoes of an observer and then see where your eye gravitates towards, right? And then see if you need to fix something about that gravitation or not. I know we're speaking like very, very high up, right? Yeah. It's again like the art fundamentals, anything with like patterns is going to be super recognizable. Anything with high contrast is going to be super attention grabbing. Anything with like a really unique or detailed silhouette is going to be attention grabbing. So we kind of need to be careful with how we use those different tools in a way to like channel the focus of the person. Cool. Scroll down. This week I found better ways to render the light in Unity. I added the blue close to the doors, the orange light close to the big plants. What do you think about it? Yeah. I kind of like that. I like where that is going. The blues coming out of like the windows, I'm assuming. I mean, overall, I don't mind it currently. I do not mind it at all. I don't think that's a bad shout. And I think if we make the background blue, if we make that less saturated. So let me make some notes here. Blue needs to go down in saturation, and then orange actually needs to go up in saturation. Because right now it feels like there's a lot of saturation in the blue, where I'm almost expecting that these really warm lights, like the light that is being created, is not what I expect these lights to give off, right? Because like this kind of color that we're seeing here is not the equivalent to like the lights in the scene, right? Especially this one. This is more like a white. But I'm expecting to see more of this sort of light in the scene. There's always a correlation between the actual physical light, like the mesh, right? And then the light that we add into the scene. There needs to be some correlation between the two. Yeah, different color lights, exactly. Yeah, we make the blue a little bit more subtle, and we make the orange more intense, right? So yeah, I hope that was helpful. Great looking progress though. I like it. I like where it's going. I like all the plants. I like the composition that we got going on. Feeling good. Feeling good. Yeah. Looking forward to the next update. Yo, it's gonna be awesome. Next up is designer. Let's have a look. We made some notes already. Rita's art was saying, I'm doing well, been so busy with work, but the end of the year, things seems to slow down a little bit. Yeah, that's good. That's good. These for you. I don't know if you heard it in the beginning, but we're moving back and we didn't even get a chance to meet. No. That's always a shame when, you know, I wanted to meet so many people in the UK and we didn't really get to do any of it. This sucks. Weirdly enough, it feels like we're going to have more opportunity to do that when we're like in Belgium and then fly back to the UK rather than living in the UK itself. So yeah, we'll see about that. Let's have a look at designer's work next. Blue City. Feedback on the texturing. Yeah, so I made some notes already. I feel like the textures are looking great. I made some notes here. The only thing that I would say about the textures is some of the areas are really clear that they are textured with a trim or a tileable, right? And we can use the trim or the tileable to actually disguise some of those edges too. So some of the areas that I picked out is this stuff. So where you can see that the border is always filled in with a white strip, right? Same thing here. Like the blue pattern never crosses into the edge of the asset, right? So we kind of want to replicate some of that and make sure that individual patterns are separated from each other. So we can just quickly do that. You already do that here, which is good. Horizontally, it's pretty good. We just need to do that here as well, like on these areas where we have like these strips, where we just fill them up with like a little bit of white, and that separates those areas out. And it's going to be very helpful with making it feel like it's not just like one tileable smashing into like a trim sheet, right? Those are the areas that we kind of want to avoid. Another thing that I would say is you had a question about the middle pattern, right? Which you like highlighted here. We could potentially make that unique, but you mentioned that like, hey, we can just get away with something more generic looking. I am 100% fine with that. I think it could also be a case where we can try to make something more unique with the tools that we already have, right? So where you can be like, hey, because I noticed that you had like a bunch of like these different designs. So maybe we can grab this design and then cut in some geometry and just add like separate sections into the design that are built with like a separate bit of the tileable, right? And then break it up that way. Could be interesting to look into potentially. Hopefully we get to catch up on that. Yeah, I would honestly love to hang out. It's been too long since we talked. But that would be good. But yeah. These two patterns, or like the trim sheet, you could potentially like find a way to like make more out of it. If you wanted to. I also think that it's completely fine having it this way, by the way. But it's just an option, right? So those are the two things that I really wanted to bring up. Thank you for being here, Burak. Appreciate the support. Yeah, have a good night to you, Burak. Lovely to have you here. Designer is saying, I was thinking for the brown one to use a spiral trim. That can also be interesting. Yeah, exactly. Like, honestly, you have so much stuff that you can kind of play around with, right? Might as well give it a try and see how it works. So yeah, I would say give it a try, see how it looks, and then this as a backup, if it doesn't work out, it's still more than fine. So that is 100% workable to me. Cool. Thank you, designer, and lovely to see like such detailed work for this thing. Looks so good. Yeah, great stuff, man. Great stuff. We keep on moving on. Who's next? I think from this point it's just chaos, right? Let's go. Let's go for chaos. Okay. Just gonna do it sequentially then. So route 1. I think it's gonna be a quick one, right? You just wanted to showcase the rocks and the comparison between the two. Let's see. Quick whip this week. Do the rocks look better than last week? And how many variations of big rocks will I need? Well, honestly, this isn't... So this is like previous week, right? So these look like way nicer. What I really like is that the shapes are more defined. You've got like your big silhouette, you've got like your medium shapes well defined, and then you got like surface detail, which is just like it's not too noisy, right? So I like the way that you've got like the shapes set up compared to last week. So massive improvement. I like them. When it comes to how many rocks do you need? I'm going to give a cop-out answer. Because honestly, this comes down to testing, right? The best way to figure that out is honestly just to... You don't even have to bake them down, right? You just chuck them in and then see how many you need until it looks like repetitive. If it looks like you need another thing, then like another rock, then you can just like sculpt another one, right? And you haven't lost time in like baking and you're unwrapping and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, it's always good to do like a checkup, like how much you need. It's a very, very low intensity way of testing this stuff. Like getting them into Unreal like really quick and then testing them that way. Is really beneficial. That is like a quick way to get an answer to this. Because honestly, the same thing, I would say the same thing, right? Like, I don't know how many you need. It's just, it depends on like how you use these, right? So test them in Unreal. It's gonna be a quick one. Yeah, shapes are looking really good. Andre is saying, looks way nicer. I wonder what the context is, because overall the silhouette reads as if it's too soft for a big rock formation, unless this is close to the sea. I test them out in ZBrush directly, try to build the thing out and see if it works. That's also a thing. Yeah, like, that's also a good shout. It kind of depends on what you're most comfortable with, right? Like, I just do all my testing in like Unreal. But that's a great shout though. If you're more comfortable in ZBrush, you just like stack a bunch of them. That can also work. That can also work. So yeah, great stuff, round 1. Great little update. So yeah, maybe next week could be good to see these in the scene, right? And see if we can notice the pattern or repetition or whatever. Be a good trial run. Yeah. 10,000%. Let's go. Yeah, I feel like a lot of this stuff just boils down to like what you're most comfortable in and what works for you, right? Like you have those crazy people that are like really good at modeling in ZBrush, for example, like hard surface stuff. And I'm just always like, oh God, but then that's what they're really good at. So at a certain point, like best practices, there's none really, right? It's just, yeah, just do what fits for you, I guess. Took me a long while to realize that, because I was kind of looking for the company to give me structure, you know, or like other people with more experience to give me structure. And at a certain point, I was like, cool, yeah, I can take bits and bobs from it, but I feel that what I really need is just like my own way of working. Strong composition, let's go. Let's have a look at what Lazar is cooking up. First time seeing this one. 2 basic questions. I want to spend quite some time in the blockout stage since I'm developing a look still, and I'm unsure what is going to go where. what are your recommendations for continuing this block out, and when do I switch to production? Um, I mean, this is probably a question that a lot of people have, but like a composition is mainly to lock down. Well, a block out is mainly to lock down your composition, right? So as soon as you feel that you have enough to go on and you just want to add more stuff, there's there's no real like, oh, this is good enough. I can now finally move on to like the production stage, right? Because what I would do, the way that I work, it's a little bit more chaotic, right? It's not like a thorough step plan. It is more like, okay, what do I need for this? So let's say I'm controlling the scene now. I want to have like a little staircase that kind of just like winds down here or something, right? So then I would just quickly build. Oh, move please. So I would just quickly build like a staircase, cobble together like, I don't know, like how are we going to bridge this? Maybe like a couple of rocks, you know? Slap like a couple of them in. I'm literally talking about like 5-minute work on like a rock that I have like a shape that I can just bash in here, a cube that I can stretch to make like a staircase, or maybe model some really quick stairs, get them in and kind of play around with those shapes to then just see how that would like complement like the silhouette, right? And then, okay, so how are we gonna do this, right? Like how are we gonna like extend this curve? Probably we can do something like this, right? And then we can add in some additional foreground elements where there's like a nice old like rustic fence. God, I'm so used to always like ending my composition here that this feels weird to me, but hey, we're rolling with it. Right, and then you can just build this up this way, and then you have like another like rock layer here with like a tree sticking out of it. Maybe play around with like, okay, what if we have like another tree here so that it's a bit more secluded, you know? Like a small little tree or some bushes. Sketching is getting a little bit messy, but right, because there's like no real end to like a block out. It's just like, okay, I kind of know that the composition is working now. Like I'm still kind of weirded out by like how much space is left here. So in my case, I'm probably just gonna put like big blockers in the way and have like a big tree up here as blocking my vision, and then just have like, I don't know, a couple more bushes. Maybe here, put like another foreground thing into play, like a cut down tree stump or something, or maybe like another bush. Right, and then you just fill it out more and more, because this could all still be block out, but like you could also already be in production, right? So it's like a definition game. Wouldn't get too lost into it. So the main thing about a blockout is we want to focus out the comp, right? And then also figure out like how many assets we need and how long, well, sort of how long the timeline is going to be, right? So that we have a good idea of like, okay, this is all I need to do to get to the end of the project. That is good. And the comp is going to be set in stone. Yeah. Would you go as far to block out some flowers and grass as well? Yeah, I mean, like in blockout, like blocking out like a bunch of flowers and grass is actually gonna take like 5 minutes, right? because literally just like scattering a bunch of planes, and then for flowers, you just make them like really quickly. I don't think. So again, like it depends on what you want to do, right? But for me, when I think about a block out, it's like stuff that is going to have an impact on the direct composition, right? Flowers and grass, I can paint them in and out wherever, and they're going to have almost no impact on the composition whatsoever. Trees, yeah, we need to figure out how many trees because they take up a big space in the forest, right? So get all those things out that are going to have an impact on the composition with like grass and flowers. I personally, I don't care about them. Like they're so free to move around. You have so much flexibility with them that honestly, yeah, you can move them whenever. But again, right, it comes down to like if you think like, hey, I really don't know what to do with these flowers and grass things, then you can add it in the block out. It's for you to solve the questions that you have, right? Thank you for being here, Slate. Love it to have ya. So yeah, that's about it. I mean, it's honestly pretty quick, you know, like, and it's also, it's not like, so it's also not like when you switch to production, right, quote unquote production, that you cannot touch your composition anymore, right? Nothing is set in stone, right? You can go back and forth and are like, hey, look, like now that I have like the colors and the materials are coming in, and like some of the proportions of the things like from my assets changed, you can still move stuff around. So it doesn't have to be rigid. It's about iteration, right? Like the freedom to like change it whenever you want to like a certain degree. That's what you should like focus on. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. Yeah, cool looking stuff though. Like Andrea said, like really strong composition on this already. Gonna be cool to see this coming together. Yeah. Next one up is Val. Val is doing the Final Fantasy IX recreation. Val, you had 4 questions. We're only gonna do 2 though. We limit to 2 per person, so I just picked 2 at random. The first question was, I got the design from other parts of the game, but I'm unsure as to whether I should approach it by modeling or solve it by texturing. My current model has a ton of geometry, and I felt like it was maybe too much compared to the rest of the scene. Well, it's hard for me to say, right? Because I don't know what the original design is. I mean, honestly, there's so much geometry in here that you can easily clean this up, you know? Like there's no way that you need so much geo on like this central pattern. So that can easily be cleaned up. For this stuff, because it doesn't change the silhouette. Have a look. If it doesn't have a big impact on the silhouette, honestly, you could make this easily with a texture. And then what you can do at the end, when you have your texture, is then just add like a couple of cuts. You basically just cut around the geometry. And then this is your new geometry, right? So you basically just have like a triangle with like a lip that goes up. And that's it. Like it saves you like a ton of geometry, makes it super simple as well. So I would do it with a texture if there's nothing else that you can use from the rest of the stream. I'm just reading like the chat. Long stream today. Yeah, I know. We might get to the point where I'm just gonna cut it short, or like maybe start like an egg timer or so, like per person, because Jesus. But anyway, what I was explaining here is, let's say if you have like trim sheets and like textures already lying around where you can cobble stuff together and make this pattern, I would do it with geometry. If you're starting from scratch, it is probably going to be more efficient to just do it with like a texture and then just cut around it, give it a little bit of geometry, but that's going to be way more efficient. Cool. So texture, if this is a new asset, or geometry if it's reused. Have a clock that starts ticking faster and faster so that the feedback goes faster and faster. Oh my god, that would be so chaotic. I mean, I feel like that's what I do anyway because I realize that I'm like running over time and like, oh god. Let's see. So the other question that I picked was oh, you mentioned like 2 and 4? Okay, let's do 2 then. So we do 1 and 2. Lighting issues. When I try to look at the Lumen isolated view, I get those pink areas with message missing surface cache coverage. I thought it was maybe the material, but it uses the same as the columns. Gotta head on out, so I'll catch you in the next one. Thank you, Zoe, for popping in. Good night. The other issue with lights is that I'm getting the icon, getting this icon. Oh, so the... Okay, so we're... Hold on. A lot of questions buried in here. Sneaky. So let's see. So this icon is really easy to fix. That is just because your light is set to static and not movable. If you set it to movable, that's going to fix it. Super easy fix. Because what this means is that you have too many light sources in one place, and they basically are going to be like super inefficient. So setting that to movable is going to be done really quickly. Cool. And then for the Lumen missing surface cache coverage, I'm not 100% sure. I can only assume that it potentially has something to do with your what are they called again? Your mesh distance fields, I think. I am guessing. I don't know that 100%, but that would be something to look into. Because what it does is Lumen uses like a lower fidelity representation of your actual assets to then do like all the material and lighting calculations on top of. So if you have something that looks purple, it might be because your mesh distance fields are not generating correctly. But yeah, if you want to be sure, go to, I mean, honestly, this is gonna sound so simple, but like go to the documentation. They have like really great documentation on this stuff and what to do in cases where it's like purple. Just the Unreal Engine documentation will show you the way. Yeah. Hoping that was helpful. A cool, really cool looking scene though. Really cool looking scene. Yeah. If you want to get my help next week, feel free to add like 2 more questions, but otherwise like we're gonna be slowing down with so many questions, as you can already tell, even with 2. But yeah, it's cool to see your work though. It's been a while since we've seen you, Val. So it's cool to see your work again. Really cool little scene that you're making. Looking forward to seeing more of it as well. Right. Cool Major, Sorav. Working on the kerosene fan. So first question is the patina effect, where I got a couple of questions for the patina effect. First, you don't get like the darkening that you see here, right? That's the effect that you want to go for. That's also because like the albedo isn't darkened, so maybe trying to make it darker is going to give you that effect, right? And also, I'm curious what the metallic looks like as well, because the roughness looks good. I'm wondering what the metallic looks like, because I almost want to change the metallic to be like somewhat like this mask, but we also get this weird. It's gonna be a weird like effect anyway, but this is not like 100% PBR correct stuff. Like not even 100% PBR correct stuff. It's more like sometimes you kind of have to break the rules to kind of get like these weird looking transitions on metal to work. So that's why I'm saying like, what does the metallic look like? Because yeah, that is also going to be an important part of this equation, right? Because even if your roughness looks really good, or looks decent, then the metallic can also have a play on this too. So the same actual question here as well. Like for example, in this case, what you would do is all the corrosion you would have just as non-metallic, and then the rest of it, even the rust, could be like 50% metallic, I guess. And then you have like your copper, which is like pure metallic, right? But anyway, you were asking your second question for the copper patina effect. Would like some feedback? It honestly is looking really, really nice. Like I said, the metallic can also have a big impact on this part too. That would be cool to switch around with. The only thing that I would say is like your interpretation is more red than orange. So changing that to like orange could be the thing that puts you closer to what you would get with like copper. And then also maybe getting some of that like variation in here would be cool, where it needs to be subtle. Like instead of like a singular color, like wherever around the edges where it's starting to oxidize, you get like different shades of orange. Could be really interesting as well. So yeah, a couple of quick pointers here. Just wanted to point them out. Yeah, great stuff. Otherwise, I feel like you've honestly made like a lot of really good improvements on the materials. So really cool to see. Massive shout out to Danny for helping out as well, as always. Yeah. Oh, I'm not seeing everything from this. Fair. This is the eternal question. It depends on who you're gonna ask. You are currently talking to an artist. I will tell you to use whatever color you want in your metallic map. If you're gonna ask the same exact question to a tech artist, they're gonna say no, or highly likely. I am in favor of not doing anything by the rules. So I will add metallic. I will add metallic to glass. I will add metallic to water. I will add metallic to. I will play around with like in between values to like stuff like this, because I will go for looks first, and then try to balance it with what is correct, right? Whatever looks good is the best. Yep. Shortly said, TLDR. All right. Next up is McVal. Let's have a look. Blasting through these. See, we're getting like an automated timer because we're quicker and quicker. So, how is the composition, lighting, and the fog this week compared to last? I feel like that's also cheating. You know, like 3 questions into 1? How dare you? Let's have a look. I do need to get the picture from last week, though, so that we can do like a direct comparison. It looks nicer. We're getting some blues in here, so you change the light to be more blue as well, which is cool. So we're getting like a colder vibe to the whole thing too. And we got some more atmospheric fog, which is really cool. So I'd love to see that. And then I do like what you did, like the streaks of the fog. They kind of feel like they're more flowing with the mountains, right? And that's pretty cool too. I like to see that. And then let's see for the second. Well, we didn't really talk about the lighting. I feel this might be one of those scenes where like the lighting, you're playing around with it like every week, which is good. I encourage you to do that. But I also think that we haven't seen the last like pass on the lighting yet, so keep playing around with it. You know, keep exploring a little bit. It's been a while since I made a trim sheet, so I have some questions. I made a rough plan for the trim sheet, but I'm a bit worried about a lot of the details. Since a lot of details are sticking out quite far. Okay. Oh, are you talking about this stuff? That's all flat. That's all flat enough. With like these things, yeah, you will have to incorporate some like geo, right? Yeah. The rest of it looks quite nice. But even with a trim sheet, right? Like even if you were to like, let's say you make it flat and you just have like all these patterns, right? You can break them down into like the individual pieces. You can, for example, say like, hey, look, I have a pattern that has like this included. I have a bunch of these guys. And then I just have like, I don't know, like a generic wood texture that is going to use for like all the beams. And if you do something like this, then you can also make like something like this, right? Because it uses the same components. Maybe you just make like a couple of extra like symbols. It allows you to kind of like bash stuff together from what you've made. It's basically just a whole bunch of like UVing and making all the individual components. They could even be a trim, right? You could have like a trim of all these like symbols so that if you want to use them on a flat thing, you have that available. But then also you can still cut around them in the UVs and then use them as like separate items. You can kind of like puzzle together with your UVs too. Yeah. Because yeah, even with this, right? Like you could make this whole section as a trim. Which, I mean, you never know. You never know where you're going to be using it. And then if you realize like, hey, I need more geometry, you can still cut around it. Right? And then on the trim itself, you kind of just have, I don't know what you need. You could even have like another trim where it's just like generic wood, right? Like the black wood that you need on like all your surfaces. Especially the underside of the surface, right? That was sort of what I was thinking. Yeah, that's good. Maybe one row with decorative stuff and then the wood strip underneath. Yep, that works fine. And then you can kind of cobble stuff together, you know, puzzle it together yourself. There were so many cool trims to choose from. Well, see, the benefit here is though, you still have a lot of room, right? You could still add like a bunch of those cool trims if you wanted to. Still have room. So you basically want to puzzle together a bunch of stuff. Maybe make 2 or 3. Yeah. The benefit about this is that you can just see like, hey, this is all the stuff that I need, and then just fill up the rest with like additional trims, and then just use them in your scene, because it's not gonna look out of place, right? Oh, that is cool. Yeah. Or even get some of those unique items in, right? Like, let's say you do like something like this, and you just have like the front of it at the bottom of your trim sheet. And then again, the rest of it is just like a generic wood, but this time it's red. You can cobble this stuff together, right? Well, making them tileable left to right just makes it easier, right? Because then if you have like a really long strip, you don't have to be worried about like, oh, cutting along with it. Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with just being like, hey, look, I got all the trims that I need. I'm just going to add like these guys into it, right? And then you just have like a bunch of like, I don't know, you just fill up the space with like random stuff that you need. That's totally fine too. Looking good. Right, McVal, thank you so much for showing your work again. I feel like it's happening. We're getting closer and closer to it, you know? Now, yeah, the focus is going to be in a building. I'm excited to see that coming together. It's going to be cool. Right, McVal, thank you so much. See you next week. Next stop is with Max. So I made a couple of notes here already. The first question was, too limited for your portfolio? Honestly, this a little bit more context there. Like, the question was basically like, if this sort of environment is too limited for an environment art portfolio. And again, it's like the question that we had before, right? It's not about like how massive or how big it is. It's about the quality of it, right? Not the quantity. As an environment artist, like, I want to see some storytelling, especially like going into like, if you have these characters, like, why are they fighting? Like, what's good and evil? Like, how do we separate those two, and how do we make it like feel like it's going to be really impactful, right? Because every piece that you make can be a showcase for something, but you get to decide what that showcase is for, right? For example, if you look at my portfolio was predominantly focused on bigger scoped scenes, right? Where that is going to be a showcase for like, hey, this person doesn't want to focus on like the micro. He wants to focus on like the bigger scale, right? Because I never had an interest in like small stuff. And yeah, so you can do that with every piece, right? Like, I've had pieces where I was like, hey, this is going to be my foliage project. Like, really going to be focusing on foliage, etc. The large vegetation, that was like your second question, right? Let me have a look at the exact question. In the meantime, Mikhail saying the roofs are metal sheets, which could look really cool with the lighting as well. Oh, okay. That's going to be interesting. Metal, though. That feels so weird. It's so weird for that kind of a scene. Where is it? There it is. Would some sort of, so this was a question from Max, would some sort of large foliage, dead or dying trees or bushes would be worthwhile to break up areas? For example, the right-hand side of the main vista shot. Yeah, I mean, that could definitely be worth it. Like, if you just look at like some of the notes that I made, some like gnarly roots sticking out from the side, maybe having like some bushes, like, you know, like some of those like thorn bushes or something like that. It could definitely be worth it. You could definitely have some shapes and some volume to like build up in certain areas. That could definitely be nice. And I think it could be cool to potentially even do like a dead hero tree, you know, like a tree that is just like becomes more of an attractive focal point. And also, if you then just like change a little bit of the tree, right? So if you say like, hey, I have this like really unique looking tree, you make it just a little bit more generic looking. You can then use it in the background for a lot of stuff. Because you have like all these trees here, right? You can then just use like a more generic looking one and just like scatter it in the background, and then you got two birds with one stone, right? You got like a really kick-ass hero tree, and then let's say you do chop off like all the branches, and you, I don't know, you add some generic stuff to it. Then you could just, yeah, scatter the whole scene with it. So yeah, having like a hero tree versus like some scatter stuff could be really, really beneficial for the scene. Yeah, just some really, really quick feedback there. Yeah, but this is a really cool scene though. I really like it. I like the way that the lighting is already set up. Very impactful, very dramatic. Oh, there was one thing that I forgot to show you. I made it even more impactful and dramatic by just doing this and just focusing our view more on like the central thematic, right? It's a little bit too much looking back at it, but you can kind of use this as like maybe there's some cloud coverage that is casting like cloud shadows, and you can kind of fake them with whatever you want. But that can be like an effective tool of like focusing us to like a certain area if we wanted to. Mora is saying like it looks like a Dark Souls environment. Yeah, it does. Like very desaturated with like a very cool color contrast. Like a very warm color contrast, should I say. Yeah. Cool stuff, Max. Cool to see your work. Yeah. Really, really cool. Yeah. Storytelling is definitely going to be the kicker for that sort of a project. Next up, we got Hadzino. Hadzino is basically asking for a portfolio presentation. I think we honestly talked about this last week. It's basically going to be the same thing, right? You have a beautiful environment that you can use as like a presentation table already. I would just clean it all out, make sure that you kind of have it set up as like a little studio, right? So you can kind of see my little paint over here where like you have the floorboards, you have the carpets, the walls at the back of it, and that's it. And then you just like add your assets like in the front of it and try to make like an interesting looking like portfolio presentation, right? Because then it's in context and you're showcasing like the portfolio or like the assets still in like a very interesting way, rather than just being like, hey, here's a grade level and here's like all my stuff in a grid, right? That's like the most boring thing to look at. Obviously you don't want to distract too much from your assets, so maybe the carpet needs to go. Don't do any vertex painting on the floor, anything like that might distract from it, right? Like I would try to really think about like the purpose of that presentation, and that presentation is just like focus on like the amount of assets that you made and how you made them. And the same thing can be said about your modular pieces as well. That's what I added here. Your modules, same thing. You could even use the same presentation and then just like replace those assets with your modules, angle them slightly, have all your modules next to each other so that you can showcase them. Yeah. A really simple trick for your portfolio. So yeah. Short and snappy. Yeah. Looking forward to seeing what you do with it. Fair. Thank you so much for sticking it out so long. Did I miss you raise your hand at the beginning? I'm so sorry if I did. But I love the updates that you've done. Like the trees now, they look so good. They look so fluffy. They look so dense. Like it feels, this is straight out of a game to me. Like I feel like you nailed the style. So awesome job on that. I also love the little color that you have, the color variation on the tips. I think that's like a really nice accent. I don't know if that is like built in or if that's like with lighting or something like that. But it's cool. It's cool regardless. You were asking for like a couple of polish notes, right? Let me read your question again. What things do you think that I can improve? We don't want to change the scene that much. That's understandable. And let me see. Is your second question, is that the same? I was thinking about adding some final touches like gold rays, animated butterflies, or something else to make the scene feel a bit more alive. Do you think it's a good idea? Okay, so let's separate these out. I got like a couple of polish things that I could add. There's like a couple of cool things that you can do, mostly with pre-existing assets, right? And it's mostly focused on the silhouette again. So for example, here, just adding like a little bit of that grass on top of this rock, right? Because you have done that here with like the mushrooms. You can even have like a cheeky little mushroom here too. You could try a mushroom. Maybe grass is going to be better because grass is going to blend in with the rock and it's not going to draw your attention to it, right? But something to just break up the silhouette of this rock, because otherwise it kind of looks like a green croissant the way that it's currently angled. Not only that though, it's more about like making the silhouette like interesting, right? And then we can kind of reuse like some of the cool plants that you've made. Maybe like scaling them up and almost having them like angled like over the sides a little bit more. Potentially even looking into like having some roots or something like that, right? But you can kind of see that it's mostly focused on the silhouette. I'm just really trying to make like the most of that silhouette as possible. I tried to add grass there, but it's outside of RVT, so it loses the color. Oh, and this is inside of RVT? Oh, I guess so. Well, I guess in that case, you just have to fake it. Right? Instead of like, you will probably either have to do adjustments to like your material or just make like a really quick material that just uses the same setup without RVT, right? And then do it that way. Because you could almost do it where the color is only coming from like a base color node where you have fully control. Where you have like full control over. And then you just like tune it in your viewport to be exactly what you need, right? So that's probably like the easiest thing to do. To kind of get you there, get you over the finish line, right? Let's see. The grass here looks awesome. I like what you did with it, like the subtle touches. I wonder if you can add some of this variation. I think it's mostly coming from the light, if I'm understanding this correctly. It would potentially be cool to have like a little bit more of that effect where we can see like the individual grass things a little bit more here. It's small things, but it's just more like an optional thing. I would add like a question mark. Right, that's more up to you and like how easy it is and if it's worth it and not too distracting, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, Andre is saying great work, Fair. Let's go. Burak is back. He couldn't sleep. Welcome back. Tim, the way that you pronounce the R tonight is very chunky. Yeah, I have like my English R, right, which is like no rolling of the R whatsoever. And then I have my R that I roll, you know, like the rolling R that I use in like when I pronounce things in French, you know, like. I mean, not in French because my French is not that good, but yeah, we definitely get the same R in like Belgium, you know. Cool. So second question here. So you were talking about like God rays or like animated butterflies or something else to make the scene feel a little bit more alive. Do you think that's such a good idea? A couple of quick things that you could potentially experiment with is I guess that's what you already done, right? Because you did like a world position offset on your trees in the grass. That's gonna help a lot already. Do it on the mushrooms as well and have them like slightly wiggle. That would be cool. But yeah, maybe having like a butterfly flying around could be cool. I mean, a God Ray is definitely going to be the easiest thing, right? But a butterfly would be cool. It's like it would add so much movement. Borakopper is saying, I think a campfire can go a long way in this scene. Yeah, unfortunately, like it's a bit too late for that. It's not a bad idea, but it's more that is more of a choice of like where you want to take the scene artistically, right? But in terms of like movement, like yeah, I think a butterfly or something like could be cool. It just depends on how much you want to add, right? But I think honestly, just having the world position offset and like the trees like swaying in the wind and like the grass like kind of blowing and the leaves kind of blowing, that's already gonna do like a bunch. Wait, but your question was actually, do you think it's a good idea or would it be too technically challenging for a noob like me? I think a butterfly is actually pretty easy to do. You can probably find like a very easy way to set up a butterfly where you don't even have to rig it or anything like that, and it just makes like a flapping thing, right? But it is a bit of a technical challenge. If you want to make it really cheap, you can just have like is that done with Niagara? You're asking good questions I don't have the answer to, honestly. I don't think so, because Niagara is just for like spawning particles, right? It's not really used for like animation. I think I would try to do it cheap with... There's so many ways that you could do it. I would try the way that I would... This is my cascading things of thoughts, right? Is I would try material first. If that doesn't work, I would try a blueprint. If the blueprint doesn't work, I would then go in looking into animation. Like that's the way that I would do it. But Omar is saying it can be vertex painted up and down motion. That's what I was assuming. That you just do it through like vertex animation, world position offset kind of stuff. Yeah. That's gonna be fun though. But again, like it's one of those things where you can try it. If you see that like the rabbit hole is trying to suck you in, just like back out, you know? And just be like, hey, look, I'm not gonna be doing this. What I was gonna say, yeah, that's what I was thinking, Omar. There has to be like a tutorial for birds, 100%. Like just have like random birds flying away. If you can keep it super simple, right? You can just have like the butterfly like sitting on a rock with like flapping his wings like open and closed. You do that. Frida is saying, I still don't know. I keep calling it Niagara. I guess that's how you pronounce it, right? Niagara butterflies should not be too hard. I'm looking into moths at the moment. Okay. Well, this is the thing that I have no clue about, right? Because I'm still an old school boy. I don't use Niagara. I used God, what was it? What was the system called before? I can't even remember. The old particle system. So it's been a while since I touched it. But no, this is a killer scene, fair. Really great stuff. Great job on like making the fluffy trees. It's looking really, really, really good. So yeah. Cascade. There we go. Cascade. But yeah, really cool stuff. You know what? Surprise me, you know? Butterfly or no butterfly, I'm gonna happy with this scene anyway. So it's gonna be cool. Great stuff, Fair. Thank you for posting and thank you for sharing. Appreciate it. And last one for today is Momen. Momen El Tobogi. Tobji. Momen El Tobji? Let's see. Hopefully I pronounced one of the two correctly. First of all, great to see your work. I think you're new here as well, so it's lovely to see you. My question is the first message. Okay. Currently wrapping up this environment. I need some help with presentation, as it's my first environment, so this part is new to me. These are some shots that I've taken so far, and I'm wondering if anything is feeling flat or just something compositionally not fitting. I attached Indiana Jones reference composition as a guidance. Also, if something is standing out in the environment, like, whoa, it doesn't fit, let me know. Okay, so we're just going to be focusing on a top G. There we go. Thank you for the feedback, Tim. No worries. Thank you for posting it. These are the latest ones. I think so, right? I think I didn't get like the latest ones like 16:9, but we can sort of ignore that. Very, very cool scene. I do like it, like the small details. Look very nice. Very, very nice, like, color grading as well in the presentation. I don't think anything compositionally, like, really stands out. You know, I think these are great. Yeah, I think you can potentially do something more with, like, the door and having, like, a close-up of the door, because there is some, like, storytelling going on with that, right? As, like, a detail shot. So you would have, like, these shots at the top, and then you can get some like detail shots of like materials or oh, let's see, mini presentation. What I was worried about, there's an asset presentation as well. Let's see. Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, yeah. I see. Let's get those in there. So yeah, I was saying those detail shots, you could add those in there too, right? And then we have like this example from like Indiana Jones, which is okay. You know, I don't mind those presentations. They're like really nice and clean, right? They're great to create like consistency between like a bigger set of things that you've done. They're not just like they're just not the most interesting when it comes to showcasing your assets, right? And then we have like a couple of yours as an example. They're gonna be following like the same kind of like structure, right? God. So cool. Here we have these guys. There's honestly nothing wrong with a presentation like this, right? Nothing wrong at all. It's just it's very clean. And if that's the style that you want to go for, I 100% get it, right? And again, there's nothing wrong with it. What you could potentially do with this is try to highlight some of the materials a little bit more, right? Because I think your lighting setup is good. It is just highlighting some of the materials, and maybe you could, I don't know, like there's opportunities in these areas, right? Where like I guess like God. Especially where like the that's better. Especially where you have this like roughness variation, right? That's an opportunity to have like more variation that is visible, right? Because if you think about it, like this stuff all fell on top of it, which is cool, but then we would also expect to see like more dirt and grime and all that kind of stuff around it, right? It's not necessarily presentation stuff, but if you're doing these like really nice shots, it's almost like you're inviting someone to look at your materials, and I think they might feel the same thing where there's like, ooh, there's like an opportunity there to like pull more out of them, you know? Right, that makes sense. But yeah, honestly, for the rest of it, let's see, in terms of like the presentation, right? I think the presentation itself is like pretty good. My headphones just die. Okay, well. Gonna head off. Thanks for the feedback, Tim. Thanks for being here, McFarlane. Let's see. It might also be a case where it's either like roughness variation or just slightly more intensity in your rim light, where you like get like a nice like shine from the back of it. That could also be the case. Yeah, just a couple of things there. What I also do like, I don't know if you have it set up in the same way. You probably have. Looking at it. What this setup is usually like is they have the background is basically just like a large rounded cube, like inverted, and then they just added like well, they basically cut the sides off of it, right? So I hope that makes sense. Oh, I noticed that I'm losing steam here, so it's about time that cut this short, I think. Yeah, all I wanted to say there at the end was that you have like a rounded cube that is inverted, and that creates like a nice like variation in your background, right? Because we can kind of see that like it goes here and then it kind of hits like this nice curve, and then it goes up. You know? So that would be kind of nice to integrate in your scenes as well, so that the background is not just like a uniform color. So that the background becomes like a little bit more interesting to look at. Have like a little bit of variation there. I can play with the lighting for sure. What do you mean inverted? So basically imagine like a large rounded cube. Yeah, inverted normals, exactly. Imagine like a large rounded cube if you're going inside of it, but if you're inside of it, you're not going to see it because you're looking out of it, right? So we need to invert the normals, and then you get that like nice curve. So if we're looking at it from the side, this is basically the way that their studio is set up, right? So they have like a little camera here, they have like their asset here, and then in the background they have like a beveled cube. But normally your normals will be facing out this way. You just invert them so that you can see the interior of the cube. Like a photo studio background. 100%. Yeah, great stuff though. And that creates like something of an interesting gradient to look at, right, for the presentation. I basically took my shots with transparency. Yeah, it does work, but it feels like they're so disconnected from what they're presented in. That's the sense that they just feel. I mean, I feel like they're floating for these guys. Like I don't mind, right, because they are floating. But like for these guys, where they're like supposed to be attached to the floor, it's nice to have a semblance of the floor still in there. It's a tiny thing, but it can only help. Let's see. Were there more questions? No. I think you've done a good job. I'd be really curious to see to pick up the environment next time a little bit earlier, right? Because usually if we're at this stage, I mean, this is pretty much done, right? You're working on the presentation, all that kind of stuff, so yeah. All I got to say is good job. When you said my presentation felt clean, what do you mean by that? Like if I made it dirty, how would that look like? No, I'm more talking about from like a design point, right? If what is the best way of saying this? It is more from it's more from like a design point, from like aesthetics. It looks very clean, very clinical. Like let's say if we think back at what I said to Hatsino right before, I was talking about like, oh, it would be nice to present your work in context and have like the scene there and have it be there. Where this is like, okay, we're gonna strip away all the context and we're just gonna put it in an empty room and that's it. So yeah, that's what I mean by that. If you had anything to say about my environment, it's welcomed. Yeah, but like sometimes. So the main thing that I do want to say is mostly from like a logical perspective, where dirt and debris is coming from, right? I don't necessarily want you to implement like all this stuff now. Like if you think about like all this stuff underneath here, right? It looks visually pleasing, but where does it make like logical sense? Right, because that is like it looks nice as like set dressing, right? It just looks nice that we have like a bunch of gunk on the floor. Like where does all this stuff come from? Right? Like I could sort of make this stuff up here makes sort of sense because that's from like the ceiling. Right? And then maybe some of this stuff too. But just having like that logical sense where I can see there's a theory called, or like there's a practice called God, I'm really losing it tonight, huh? Cause and effect. Jesus Christ. Probably need to go to sleep. So there's a thing called cause and effect where it is really helpful visual tool to just be like, hey, look, if this is the cause, or like this is the effect of what happened, right? What is the cause? And if I can like as a player, if I can visually connect it to, that is really interesting to look at, right? So that would mean that like let's say, okay, there's like a hole in the plaster here, you know, and we can kind of see like the bricks behind it, and some of the bricks are also missing. Cool. And then we have like a brick here on the table, and there's like another brick here, and then there's like just a bunch of like debris on the floor from like that hole in the wall. Then I can link like, hey, look, and link this to like all this stuff, right? And it kind of ties the whole thing together. I thought about it like it broke down from the roof. Yeah, I think you got like the most of the components are good here, right? So like the little tile bits from the roof I can get, but then there's just like the pipe and like some of this stuff, like the wood and some of the like more generic rubble. Then it's like, okay, like where did that all come from, right? And I know that I'm being very picky, but that is the appeal about like these things, right? Like these environments, it's all about the like detail. Yeah, I can tell, right? That's why I'm being very picky here now. But the core ideation is already there, and I can tell that you paid. You definitely wanted to make it work, right? Peeling, yeah, stuff looks really nice, by the way. The way that like it's peeling from the wall. It's so good. But yeah, overall, like really, really good job though. I really like the way that this came together, or like it looks. We didn't see how the sausage was made, but it looks really, really nice. So great job, Top G. And thank you for posting as well. I appreciate it. And hopefully with the next environment, it's always nice to be able to follow along and like be a part of the process, right? And be a bit more involved. I think then I can share like more feedback. That would be cool. But honestly, yeah, amazing job with this. Really cool to see this. And I think you did a stellar job with the lighting. The lighting in the post-processing, like you got that like 100% right. And that adds so much. Yeah, try to potentially infuse some of that sort of thinking of like lighting and post-processing into like the presentation for the assets and all that stuff as well, right? So yeah. Yes, good stuff. First environment, yeah, good stuff. Good to see it. Swan Boy is saying sleepy time, Tim. That is exactly right. I'm not going to make this any longer than it needs to be because we're getting close to 12 in the middle of the night here. So thank you all so much for being here still. I'm surprised by like the amount of people that are still here. So I appreciate you all so much. As you mostly know, like you know where to find me. Go check out our lovely community. Go check out our resources. Go do all that good stuff. And then, yeah, I'll see you. Well, I hope to see you on Saturday when like the signups open up for the team challenges. Let's go. And if not, I'll see you next week. Have a nice week, people. Bye-bye.